This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver. So the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of council for Monday, March 16th at 7 o'clock. Council, we want to start off in a good way. Councillor Ma, I believe, is going to read our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Little. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you, Councillor. Council and agenda has been circulated with the package. Any errors or omissions from the agenda as presented? Hearing none, will someone move its adoption? Moved by Councillor Forbes, second by Councillor Ma. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. Council, we have one set of meeting minutes that have been circulated with the package. This is for the February 17th public hearing meetings. Any errors or omissions from those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, will someone move their adoption? Moved by Councillor Back, second by Councillor Forbes. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. All right, carrying on with this evening's business, we always set aside a period of time at the front end of a regular meeting of council for public input. And so we have a period of up to 30 minutes at the front end for speakers to raise issues of concern, 3 minutes at a time. We do have a number of people who have signed up to speak at this time. Looks like about 6 speakers have signed up ahead of time. And so we should have time for a couple of others if people would like to add their name to the list as we go along. First speaker I have is Nadine Frankowski, joining us virtually.
Good evening, Mayor Little and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nadine Frankowski. Our family of 8 have called Draycott Gardens home for 20 years now. I'd like to raise several concerns about the scale and type of redevelopment currently proposed for our community. This project would increase the number of homes on the site from 32 townhouses to over 397 apartment units. That's more than a 10-fold increase in density. With a scale of development such as this, I'm questioning whether the supporting structures are in place to accommodate that level of growth. And is the proposed housing location and type appropriate for the families that are being displaced? With regards to supporting structures, residents in Lynn Valley are already experiencing pressures with regards to traffic congestion, school capacity, access to healthcare and hospital services, and other core infrastructure. With regards to the current type of housing that exists on this site, these townhomes are home to many working families and essential members of the community. The type of housing is currently ground-orientated, family-friendly homes, and this is becoming increasingly rare and difficult to replace. Over 69% of the district rental stock is apartments, with only 9% being row houses. Replacing these homes entirely with apartment units risks losing an important form of workforce and family housing in Lynn Valley. At a time when birth rates are declining and communities are trying to retain young families, townhouses represent an effective form of family-oriented density. They provide more space for families while still achieving the higher density than detached homes. When council is considering plans for redevelopment of this community, it's only ethical to avoid social segregation and a rich door, poor door scenario. Current plans have tenants being moved to smaller square footage, losing green space, yards, the playground, and being moved out of their quiet environment to be perched over one of the busiest roads in the area. My request to council is not to oppose growth, but to encourage balanced growth. I ask that you consider how the infrastructure will keep pace with the scale of the development and whether projects of this size should include replacement of family-oriented housing such as townhomes. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments, Nadine Frankowski. The next speaker I have is Joanna Lasoka, joining us here in person. Welcome. Have a seat. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Joanna, and I've been living on Baird Road for 30 years. I want to speak regarding tonight 3,000 block on Baird Road development. The question tonight I have is simple. How much density should be placed on just 3.5 acres of land? And whether 6-story is simply too much. The current zoning for this area is already 4-story buildings. Right now, this area contains just 32 units. A 4-story development would already represent a drastic increase in density. Moving to 6-story goes far beyond reasonable growth and begins to look more like overdevelopment of a very limited space. To put that into perspective, we are going from a small community of just 32 homes to potentially hundreds of units on only 3.5 acres. That is an enormous change for such a small piece of land. Packing multiple mid-rise buildings onto this site raises very real concerns and congestion, parking, green space, infrastructure, and the overall livability of the neighborhood. These are not abstract planning concepts. They affect the daily lives of the people who live here. What is also concerning is how the staff report presents this proposal in very polished language, emphasizing terms like low carbon, sustainability, and other positive planning concepts. While those goals are important, attractive wording should not obscure the fundamental issue, whether this scale of development actually fits this site and this community. Residents are not opposed to development. Communities grow and evolve, but growth must be balanced, thoughtful, and appropriate for the land it occupies, not simply driven by how much density can be squeezed onto a small parcel. Council has the responsibility to ensure that development serves the long-term interests of the community, not just the short-term profitability of a project. Developers come and go, but their consequences of planning decisions stay with the community for generations. I urge you carefully reconsider the request to increase the height and density beyond the 4-story proposal. Good planning builds communities people want to live in. Overdevelopment creates problems that communities must live with for decades. Please choose long-term community livability and over the short-term development pressure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Joanna Lasoka. Next speaker I have joining us virtually is Hazen Colbert. Get Mr. Colbert moved over.
He's there now.
Mayor Little, can you hear me?
Mr. Colbert, can you please take down your screen share, please?
I could, but I need you to stop my speaking time. I'm going to have to do something here which is a little bit unusual. I'm going to do something. I don't know why
I'm
you're
going
asking.
to,
Wait.
I'm going to pause your speaking time for just a moment, Mr. Colbert. We're going to get you to make a change there, and then we'll try to readmit you a little further down the list.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, point of order. Point of order. This is completely inappropriate for Mr. Colbert to have be showing this picture.
And I'm going to move him to the bottom of the list, and then I'm going to carry on with the list. And if he doesn't remove it, then he will not be.
It's not just about removing it. It's about removing him from this conversation.
I'm going to carry on. I'll confer with the clerk about what's appropriate in this situation in the interim time, but I do have another speaker here that I'm going to go on, and I'll come back to that question. The next speaker I have is Ursula Warwa. It's Ursula Warwa here. Joe's going to go first. Okay. Welcome, Joe. And when you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Hello, Mayor Little and Council. Thank you for your time. I would like to start and just say real quickly, we're going to speak on behalf of my mother as well. So we're going to save everyone a little bit of time. I got a couple points I would like to bring up on some of the new proposals that was provided by Polygon recently that we received in our mail. One of the first ones that directly relates to us is the access of walkways that Polygon has put in the latest proposal. Now, when we spoke to them on October 8th, it was our understanding that there wasn't going to be a walkway through to the lane access behind some of the residential neighborhoods or the residential houses on the north end of the street. It looks like that was re-added and expanded upon. It seems like that would create a choke point going back to what is a fireway and private access for those residents to the garages of their buildings. I would like to get some clarification on why that was not only re-added, but expanded upon. The other thing, and I think this is going to come up quite a bit, is the congestion situation, which is going to be specifically around the realm of Ross Road and Baird Road. Probably going to be hearing about it a lot tonight, but there was a study done in this write-up, and I wanted to bring up the language to get some better understanding. And I quote from the write-up: 3 additional trips per minute during any peak hours. It seems like that is a bit of a bending of some language, and I would like to get a better understanding of what that stat is. I'm sure everyone would. That is a known choke point where you're adding a certain volume of residences, as Joanna had mentioned, more than 10 times of what is that's currently handling. As well, when we spoke on October 8th, there was someone that did a private, or I believe a district investigation of how many people come through within a certain time slot. The time slot was 1 p.m. approximately to approximately 3 p.m. That is not peak hours. That is between the lunch hours of the Argyle students that are walking up and down Baird Road, and not when people are returning home. I also would like to question the substance of that initial study done by the district, or if it was Polygon. I can't recall exactly, but further clarification on that would be great, because that is going to be a major concern of all residents, is that choke point with a single access to this development of this magnitude. That's all I have for you right now. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Joe Warwa. The next speaker I have is Ursula Warwa.
Thank you, Mayor Little and the council. Thank you so much. My house is on Harold Road, which is on the north side of the Polygon development, which has a laneway or back alley, we might say, which is a fire lane, 1231 Harold Road. We have already had massive congestion from Covo, Millhouse, Lynn Terrace, of all these cars parking all over the street because they're not utilizing their parking stall, or they don't want to pay for a parking stall. So we have to absorb that on our street. The other thing I want to mention is when this flyer came out, it was shoved into my mail slot, didn't even come by mail. It's addressed on March 10th. And I forget what the actual day I got it in the mail slot, but the lack of communication with all the residents around this development have not been communicated to. Now, I don't know if it's like 100 yards or 100 feet, or what is the bylaw that has of residents that have to be notified or could be notified for coming in for public hearing and meetings. It's just not, the communication is very poor for a sizable development that this is right now. And this is going to affect businesses, residences, rental accommodation, everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just clarify that I think that was an additional piece of information from the developer. If the council commits to go towards a public hearing, there is an official notification that will come from the District of North Vancouver to the neighbors of the site at that time, in advance of the public hearing, which currently doesn't have an official date yet. So it would have to pass first reading, be referred to a public hearing. We'd establish the date, and then we would send out the notice and notify on the site as well, and also newspaper notification as well. So those public notifications have not happened yet because we haven't committed to the public hearing yet. I don't know off the top of my head, but we can get that information to you. Thank you for your comments, Ursula Warwa. The next speaker I have is Joanne Angus. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Mayor and councils. My name is Joanne, and I live in Baird Road in Lynn Valley. I'm here today because my family is being asked to move from 1,500 square foot to 960 square foot apartment while paying essentially the same rent. I'm speaking tonight about the redevelopment of our apartment building that has been purchased by Polygon Development. I understand that the province, through the government of British Columbia, has introduced new housing legislation, including the Housing Statutes Residential Development Amendment Act 2023, which requires municipalities to increase housing supply and plan for future growth to address the housing crisis and improve affordability. I support the goal of creating more housing. Our community needs it. However, the situation we are facing as current tenants does not reflect the spirit of these provincial policies. We are being asked to pay essentially the same rent for more than 1/3 less living space. This redevelopment purposes for building each 6-story stall, significantly increasing density in this part of Lynn Valley. Many of us lived here for many years. Our families are here, our children go to school here, and we are part of this community. Under the proposal, we are being relocated along Lynn Valley Road, which is one of the busiest and noisiest corridor in the area. I understand that this location is along a bus route, which may be considered a planning advantage. However, for residents who have been living in quieter areas, being relocated directly along high traffic and transit corridor represents a major change in quality of life. Traffic is another serious concern. Anyone who lives in Lynn Valley knows that congestion already a daily challenge for all of us. Most mornings and afternoons, or even weekends, simply trying to leave Lynn Valley or Mountain Highway can take 20 to 30 minutes before even reaching the highway. With the addition of 4 6-story buildings, there will be more vehicles in the area. I respectfully ask the District of North Vancouver to ensure that redevelopment projects reflect the true intent of provincial housing legislation, creating housing that is fair, livable, and truly affordable for the residents who already call this community home. Because solving the housing crisis should not come at the cost of pushing the very people who built this community out of it. We are not asking for a handout. We are asking for a fair deal for the people who already call this community home. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Hanks, please. Okay, we'll check back in. So I do have enough time for some additional speakers. I am going to deny Mr. Colbert the ability to speak tonight, and I'll explain why. Mr. Colbert has had an ongoing dispute with a member of our council, including what I will characterize as some harassing behavior. And Mr. Colbert decided to post a picture of that councilor's wife to start the discussion tonight. And I found that to be out of line and consistent with bullying behaviors or harassing behaviors. And so I've made the decision to deny Mr. Colbert the ability to speak here tonight. He is still able to submit written correspondence with the municipality, but I'm going to deny him the ability to speak here at tonight's meeting. I found that to be offside. Would other members present or virtual have a comment? I've got Mr. Lesso and then on the aisle here, and that'll probably round out our time. So Mr. Lesso, come on up, please.
Good evening, your worship, members of council. John Lesso, Tenure, resident of Edgemont, and still a board member of the Edgemont Community Association if they ever plan to start having meetings again. And if they do, I would like to ask Corey Cost and Adrian Chaster where all the money went. I stated that at the last meeting. I just want to leave that here for your for the record. Because I was looking through some of the files on the Edgemont Community Association, I realized that over the past 5 or 6 years, I've got a real investment in that community association, monetarily, in terms of PowerPoint presentations, my own time, and the times of others. And there's no reason why we shouldn't have that type of representation when we're starting to talk about, well, what does the public want? Well, you can certainly get that from a community group like the Edgemont Community Association. So I urge Corey and Adrian. Corey's meeting with Mr. Fox and I later on this month to discuss that and to come to some kind of an agreement to fulfill the Edgemont Community Association statement of purpose, which was first put forward March 14th of 2023. I'll just review this very quickly with you and then I'll be gone. But the Edgemont Community Association provides the opportunity for citizens to review and their involvement with respect to decisions that affect the quality of life in the Edgemont Upper Capilano neighborhood, including major land use planning decisions, planning pending district and provincial legislation, code enforcement, and other matters deemed by residents to be important to the Edgemont community. And I think in the past we've done that. If there was any reason why the Edgemont Community Association suddenly disappeared, I really don't know, but we should get to the bottom of that before it's all covered up by the sands of time. We do need a new community association representing Edgemont and the Upper Capilano District. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lesso. Please. Welcome. If you could start with your name, that'd be great. And then you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. I'm Barbara Marshall and I live on Baird Road. And I'm not as organized as I just got my letter this afternoon in the mail. So very little notice. We're worried about the buildings 2 and 3 being 6 stories high, and they will cast a shadow on to Harold Road. Those homes, and then I'm on the other side. That we already, the Covo, which is a 3-story building, does take away the sky and cast shadow. It would be if they could graduate it, like if you did this, the higher buildings on the other parts and then fade into the single family homes, like maybe bring it down to 4 stories or 3 stories just to graduate it. And also I did like in the amended design that they set back the height of it or shifted it back, but it could even be lower. It would be better. When you're walking down that corridor, there's just the streets, the buildings, the trees. People walk in the middle of the road because you're just closed in. It's not a good feel to walk down those little sidewalks that are presently there. And the other thing I'm mostly worried is it showed on that handout that people leaving the complex to Lynn Valley Road, they go along, they cross Ross Road. That's kind of from that Ross Plaza over to McDonald's there. That is a wicked crossing, wicked, because that's how everybody leaves and comes into like Baird Road, Herald and all that. And then you've got these 400 more units and 500 more cars. That is a wicked, because it's like the Mountain Highway and the Lynn Valley intersection. The intersections are not 90, they're not crossing perfectly. They're angled. So when you're crossing, you have to turn back to see for cars. It's not just a left and a right. You have to go this way. And the same thing for cars coming. It's just, it is not good for cars or pedestrians. And then when you're adding more pedestrians and cars, it's not good. I'll just say that. I guess that's it. And thank you very much. And I'll look forward to more notice about the next steps.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, we've gone full time on public input, so I'm going to carry on with the meeting. The first item up for discussion is item 8.1. Oh, okay. Yes, we do have a release of closed meeting. Sorry, we had which release are you?
It's posted on this system.
6.1.2. Oh, the additional one. So yes, I'll have the clerk read a decision into the record.
Thank you, through your worship. Additional release from closed 6.1.2 North Vancouver Museum and Archives. At the January 27, 2014 special closed meeting, council provided direction to staff to commit to the current level of funding for the museum and archives adjusted for inflation.
Okay, that's an additional release of closed meeting decisions there, although noted it's from 2014, so it's a bit aged. Okay, carrying on with this evening's business onto item 8.1. This is the bylaws 8763, 8764 DAPR update and proposed changes to development permits, minor development variance permits, and public hearings. And at this point, we have opening comment from staff. Okay, this item was already considered by the council at a previous meeting. Will somebody be making a motion? I'll move the recommendation, second by Councillor Hanson. Any other debate or discussion on the subject? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, next item is item 8.2, bylaws 8779, 8780, OCP amendment rezoning for the mixed use development at 1246 to 1268 Lynn Valley Road and 3050 to 3174 Baird Road, Lynn Valley Mall and Draycott Gardens. At this point, I'm going to start by handing over to Yan, and then I know we have Ms. Stoker also has some comments. So Yan Zhang.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we're introducing to you a large residential mixed-use development in the Lynn Valley Town Center at a key location. And tonight is the occasion of referral, meaning that is the first reading of the Rezoning and OCP amendment bylaws. And staff recommendation is to refer this bylaws to a public hearing so that Mayor and Council can hear directly from the public, and usually at public hearings, staff will also do a full presentation and bring any response to Council's questions leading up to the hearing so that members of the community can also hear those responses. But given the scale of this application, tonight staff would like to make a very high-level overview of the proposal. And the purpose of that is really to acquaint Mayor and Council with a key aspect of the proposal and to really invite the questions from you leading up to the public hearing so that staff may be able to prepare and bring fulsome responses. Should you choose to refer. So with that, with your permission, we have Mackenzie Stonehawker ready to make a quick presentation.
Ms. Stonehawker, please, welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Mackenzie Stonehawker, and I'm one of the district's development planners. Tonight, this proposal is before Council with the recommendation to refer it to a public hearing to hear from the community. The site is in the heart of Lynn Valley Town Center, near the intersection of Lynn Valley Road and Mountain Highway. Draycott Gardens is a 32-unit rental townhouse complex built in 1972. Lynn Valley Mall was built around the same time and provides, excuse me, provides a range of services to the neighborhood, including restaurants, retail, personal service, tutoring, veterinary office, and laundromat. To the south is the core commercial center, including the library, village, and main shopping center. There are also commercial services on the north side of the road, including Ross Plaza and the medical building known as Valley Center. 2 gas stations are nearby, with Petro-Canada adjacent to the site. To the north and west of the site are detached homes, townhomes, and multi-unit residential. Note that 3161 and 3191 are accessed via a mountain highway. Finally, Hastings Creek flows near the northeast corner of the site before going under Mountain Highway and then Lynn Valley Road. The proposal is nearly compliant with the OCP, except for a 1-step increase in density on the west side of the site from 1.75 FSR to 2.5 FSR. The proposal is for 2.5 FSR across the entire site, which works out to 4 6-story buildings in the current proposal. I'll take some time to walk you through the proposal. The south lane off Baird Road would become the driveway for this development while maintaining property access to the properties on the south side, such as Ross Plaza. There's 1 ramp to a 2-level parkade. The proposal includes 4 buildings, all 6 stories tall and built in 2 phases. I'll explain the phasing on the next slide. Note that building 1 includes 2 levels of commercial and 4 levels of residential, while the other 3 buildings would be strata residential. In the northeast corner, there's a streamside protection area, which will be zoned natural parkland and replanted with native species. Along Lynn Valley Road, a significant road dedication and right-of-way is proposed for future transit infrastructures, 8.5 meters or almost 28 feet. The exact design of this area is not yet confirmed. The drawings in the report show a concept, but the combination of trees, sidewalks, bike lanes, etc. is still under review. More detail would come at the development permit stage. As anticipated in the Lynn Valley Design Guidelines, a town center pedestrian path is proposed to run north-south through the site. It starts at the southern tip of the site near the pedestrian crosswalk to the mall access. Baird Road is a thoroughfare of Argyle students, so beyond the usual sidewalk in front of the site, the proposal extends the sidewalk south to Ross Road. With these new north-south pedestrian routes, there are also east-west sidewalks along both lanes to provide pedestrian connections separate from vehicles. With such a prominent location in the town center, a significant public art installation is proposed. Further details would come through the public art process as part of development permit. And finally, in addition to private balconies, each phase includes outdoor space for the future residents. I've gone through quite a lot of information already. So should council refer this project to a public hearing to hear from the community, staff will prevent further details. But as a quick overview, oops, sorry. There we go. The project phased to avoid a temporary move for the current tenants of Draycott Gardens. Lynn Valley Mall would be demolished and phase 1 would be constructed. When the residential replacement units are ready, Draycott tenants could move straight from their existing homes into the new building at their current rents if they so choose. Then the west side would be demolished and phase 2 would be constructed. Throughout the process, the lanes would remain open for the adjacent properties. As I started saying, this project falls under the R-trap policy. The proposal includes 2 options. Tenants could move into building 1 at their current rents, or if they want to relocate, they could receive financial assistance and compensation as per the policy. The tenant relocation coordinator has kept the residents in the loop from the applicant side, from the initial application until the current stage. In addition, community engagement has followed the district's process with an in-person public information meeting and a 2-week virtual PIM. 87 pieces of input were received, which generally supported commercial revitalization. recognized the need for more housing to support and the need to support the Draycott tenants, but raised concerns about the impacts to the existing neighborhood. To hear from the community again, staff recommend council move this proposal to a public hearing. In conclusion, staff have reviewed the application and found that overall, the proposal is in alignment with district policies and guidelines. As such, staff recommend that council refer this matter to a public hearing to hear from the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Ms. Stonehawker. I'm going to now go over to council. Councillor Back, I see your hand up. Do you have a motion?
Thank you, Worship. I'm prepared to move this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Pope, are you seconding? Thank you very much. Councillor Back, your comments, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tonight, as much in many ways, tonight is the first step in formally considering this project. It's one that I've been closely following for a number of years, and I've had the opportunity to have conversations with the applicant over that time. Over that time, I've appreciated the opportunity to share feedback and see how the proposal would evolve in response to council direction for the neighborhood and community input. Given its location in the heart of Lynn Valley, I believe this is one of the most important sites and represents one of the most important opportunities as we continue to envision what the future of Lynn Valley will look like. Now, I've lived in Lynn Valley my whole life, and I've seen it evolve. And in recent years, a very walkable village center and thoughtful redevelopment in the area has played an important role in strengthening that character over time. This development is the type of location that our OCP, our official community plan, identifies for additional housing and mixed-use development, and where people can live close to shops and services, transit, and community amenities. I want to acknowledge that from my perspective, the applicant has made a genuine effort to listen to council and the community as this proposal has evolved and taken different shapes along the way. I'm going to just comment on a number of key aspects of this, and in my comments there may be some questions, and I'm hopeful that staff can come back as this does represent the first step, and should it receive support tonight, this will be referred to a public hearing, which will be our formal opportunity to hear from the community. One aspect of the proposal that I think is particularly significant is the 32 rental replacement homes for the residents of Draycott Gardens, several of whom we heard from tonight. These residents will have the opportunity to move into a brand new home at their current rent, which I think, at least in my experience, I think this would be the first of its kind for this type of arrangement in the district. So I do think that is a very key element of the proposal. Now, my understanding is that if some of the current residents of Draycott Gardens choose to move into one of the replacement units, if they choose not to move into one of the replacement units, or they move out at a later date, those units would then become market rental. That is my understanding. And while I think this is an excellent aspect of the proposal, I'm just curious if there's been any consideration into securing any further proportion of those units as some sort of non-market for in perpetuity. So it's just a question that I want to leave and have on the record as we come back potentially to a hearing. I want to focus on the commercial space because in my opinion, this is one of the critical elements of this proposal as well. Lynn Valley residents consistently tell me they want to see more restaurants, cafes, small retail, the things that bring energy and foot traffic to the town center. And this project has the potential to help deliver that. The businesses that give Lynn Valley character, the ones that are locally owned, community focused. And I think it's important that the commercial component, which represents about 25,000 square feet of commercial space, is carefully curated so that those ground floor units are the types of businesses that bring the sort of vibrancy that people want to see for this area and the sort of street life that we want to see in Lynn Valley. There are a number of existing businesses on the site here today. And with the redevelopment of this scale, there's a potential that some of those businesses could be displaced. And so I would like that addressed at the public hearing. I wonder if the applicant has considered any sort of support or transition assistance to the commercial tenants as well. We all know this largely as the Dairy Queen site because it's been there for my whole life. So there's a plug for Dairy Queen, and I'll take 2 more minutes if possible, please. I'm going to move on to traffic and access. We heard that as a concern tonight, and this is one of my concerns at this stage, the access and traffic circulation, particularly off of Baird Road and the surrounding lane network. This area sees a ton of pedestrian activity throughout the day. We know that students use this as a thoroughfare to walk to and from, particularly Argyle Secondary and the nearby McDonald's, of course. Because of that, pedestrian safety in this area is especially important during the morning and afternoon school periods when there is a lot of foot traffic. Now, I want to acknowledge that the applicant is proposing new sidewalk improvements, not just in front of the development, but all the way to the end of the block, which I think would help improve safety in this area. But council has not had an opportunity yet to review the traffic impact assessment, and we will, as if this proposal moves to public hearing. And I look forward to reading through that carefully so that we can have a full understanding of how traffic and access will function around the site. But that is a concern for me as much as it is the speakers that we heard from tonight and those who I've talked to in the community. I'm going to leave. Got a couple more comments. We've heard that building height is an issue. And I know that's an issue for some of the nearby residents in particular. I also want to understand the perspective of people building housing and the economic realities of development today. And building 3-story buildings are not necessarily buildings that are going to get built. So I think from a financial perspective, it becomes very, very challenging. But I do think there's been a lot of consideration in how they step back, particularly along Baird Road, those top stories, so they don't have that visual impact. So overall, I want to say I see many positive elements in this proposal, and I think it represents an important opportunity for Lynn Valley. At the same time, any development of this scale needs to be carefully examined, particularly when it comes to issues like traffic and neighborhood impact. And that's exactly what the next stage of this process is for. So for those reasons, I am comfortable supporting first reading here tonight, so that we can have a formal opportunity to hear from the public. Thank you.
And referring the matter to a public hearing.
Yes, thank you. That was should have been mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to support this application moving forward to a public hearing, and I want to explain why. This is a major proposal on a really important site in the middle of Lynn Valley. So I think it's fair that people have strong opinions about it. And I also think it's fair to say there's a lot of good here. First, this is a site where additional housing should be going. It's in the town center, it's walkable, it's close to shops and services, and it's on a corridor where we know transit will be improving over time. If we're serious about adding housing in the right places, then we have to be willing to seriously consider projects like this. And this project does add a lot of housing with a solid mix, including a number of family-sized units. That matters. But the piece I really want to highlight is the tenant commitment, because I think it's exceptional. We're talking about existing tenants in a 50-year-old building, some of whom we heard from tonight. Under this proposal, eligible tenants can stay in place until the replacement building is ready and then move into a brand new home at exactly the same rent. Yes, the units will be smaller, but this proposal protects people. It reduces disruption, and honestly, it sets a standard. It could be seen as a model for other developers in how to redevelop older rental housing responsibly. The other point I think that's really important and may not be getting enough attention is the transit piece. TransLink has identified Lynn Valley Road in front of this site as a future route for increased bus service, including rapid bus style priority measures, and ultimately bus rapid transit. Staff note that this corridor is part of TransLink's long-term planning and that a future BRT terminus is envisioned right at this intersection. It will be a game changer. Now, all of that said, I also want to be clear that the public concerns are legitimate. The feedback we have heard about traffic, congestion, parking, spillover, and pedestrian safety is real. Lynn Valley already feels congested at certain times, and residents are right to ask questions about pedestrian safety and what more housing means on the ground. So for me, supporting this tonight is not dismissing those concerns. It's saying this application deserves to go to the next step and that the public deserves the chance to fully weigh in at a public hearing. If this proceeds, however, I would like to see longer-term affordability for the community so that when Draycott Gardens tenants move out from the new building, that unit will remain at below market. For example, 20% below market. I'd also like to see the traffic mitigation, pedestrian safety improvements, and construction management commitments treated as core conditions. On balance, I think this is a strong application for a key town center site. It brings housing where we need it. It protects existing renters in a way that is genuinely impressive, and it helps preserve the corridor for the future transit service we know Lynn Valley is going to need. So I'm comfortable supporting first reading and refer to a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mah.
Thank you. I do have an opportunity to ask some clarifying questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Through your mayor, if I may, this project has, I guess, been on the books for I'm told about 7 years. Can staff comment on the original proposal? My understanding was that there was a tower and there was no rental. Can you just speak to that point, please? The original proposal.
Yes, through your worship, to Councillor Ma. Yeah, there was a preliminary application, and but that was not really processed. So that was, the applicant proposed something, but didn't proceed with the actual, the staff review, and that one did have a tower on the site, and so that was one-time proposal. And staff did tell the applicant at that time that this is not in alignment with the formal development anticipated by Lynn Valley, by OCP, as well as the Lynn Valley Flexible Planning Framework document. And so the applicant then made a full detailed application with a 6-story across the entire site.
And was there any retail space contemplated in that very preliminary report?
Yeah, through your worship, I think there was always envisioned some some commercial space at the building 1 facing Lynn Valley Road. But in terms of the 1-for-1 replacement, in terms of the square footage full-on replacement of the Lynn Valley Mall, that is part of the current detailed application.
Your worship seems to have some additional information.
I think we should clarify that. I think one of the original earlier proposals had no commercial. Devin, are you able to clarify the ratio of replacement and and maybe a couple of different iterations along the way? Obviously, you as a company may have had 14 different ideas in the process, but there was an earlier application that had some details.
No, it wasn't. Through your worship and to council, thank you and good evening. We initially had many different iterations trying to get this project to work. It's been an incredibly tough project to get the mechanics right. And there's a lot of moving parts here. So we've gone through many iterations to get it to where it is now. And I'm sure, well, I hope that council appreciates that. We've been working well with staff to get this across the line. So that's kind of where we've been. Where we initially started, we initially had a tower on the site just to try grab that density that we were available to have according to the OCP. But after meeting with council and members of the public, we determined that a tower was not appropriate for the site. In the initial OCP, the land use designation also doesn't call for, or it provides limited commercial space. So we didn't really have much commercial space initially, but we thought it would be good to bring it in. And then also meeting with council and staff, we were asked to at least do a replacement, 1-for-1 replacement for commercial space, which is what we've had achieved. You'll note from our initial application that we were able to achieve it. But then with the or with some extra, and then we were informed that we were going to have a dedication on the front of our site, which really squeezed down that commercial building, and still we were able to retain that 1-for-1 commercial space. Any other questions? Or yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I realize that I share similar thoughts to the previous council speakers. To me, Polygon has taken feedback from council, from the previous council actually too. I believe if this is 7 years, this precedes my time. But I've met with the developer a few times. I've gone to the public information meetings to speak with residents as well. And to me, it looks like Polygon is really trying to make this work for the community. I get it that there are going to be people affected. But when I look at Polygon, they have at least 6 other projects that they've completed in the district. So they're not someone that maybe just comes in, sees an opportunity, makes as much money as they can and move on. I really believe that they've taken an approach to listen to the community and be part of the community. I recognize that we're going to have difference of opinion on whether they've done enough. And I will be also like my colleagues and maybe push them a bit on those 32 replacement units. I read in the report that if someone moves in there and from the existing tenants and move out, they'll revert to market. I will use this word lightly, but I would challenge you to look at your pro formas to say, if you've already planned for them to stay, then leave them as lower price market, lower rental units. I also looked at the retail space. It is almost a 1-for-1 replacement, and that's a big part of it because we want vibrant communities. And I live in Pemberton Heights, but I also went to the Dairy Queen, with my daughter's soccer team. Like, there's just something special about that place. And I've also gone into the liquor store once or twice, but that's another story. But we're really about building community. This proposal is huge. And I think they have responded with some of the shadowing. I know that the upper 2 floors, the buildings are set back a bit. I don't know if they could be done more. I think they've done some reasonable steps. I do like the idea of the sidewalk on the east side, especially for the students coming from Argyle. So there's a lot of little things in this proposal that I would love to get more feedback on from the community. So I will support it going to public hearing. And I'll take my extra 2 minutes, please. I do want to touch on the issue of the tenant replacement. I worked after BC Housing. I did some work at a housing provider, and a lot of times when a developer comes in, they'll see an existing property and clear it and build up. During that 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, that process, these families that form a community, even though it's a tenant relocation program, they have to leave. When I looked at this project and said, oh, they're phasing it such that they're going to clear down the commercial space, build that up, move the tenants over, and then work on this. That's a major step. And that's not without cost to the developer. But I'm not going to worry about our developers. They can do their own performance, and I trust that they will. But this is something that isn't common in the industry. Usually, developers will come in and say, hey, give me the land so I can build, meet your objectives and provincial mandates or whatever, and just plow through it. I think they've taken a really thoughtful approach. I also like that the parking ratio, even though I think 3 bedrooms might need a little more, but there's almost one parking stall per unit. And I think even though we're trying to move towards transit, that's still important. So there's a lot of little things here. The walkway through the community to make it part of Lynn Valley. Those are all good things. And I really want to hear from the rest of the community if they believe that these little things are together good enough for approving the project. So I will keep an open mind. I do hear people wanting to preserve their community. I love where I live. I think everyone can say that they love North Van, and sometimes change is a little more difficult, but this is a town center where we did plan to have high density. And finally, yeah, that's it. But I look forward to more comments during the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Ma. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you to the speakers who have spoken before. I will not be supporting this rezoning going to first reading. The word huge was used by my council colleague, and that would seem to be the problem with this particular proposal. At this time, the number of people that would import into this area and the lack of basic infrastructure that would support this population growth in this vicinity. The proposal calls for 397 residential units and has been stated 25,000 square feet of commercial space, 481 parking stalls. Of the 397 units, only 64 units, 16% are rental. And of that, 32 are to be replacement rental, but then revert to market rental. In my view, given the circumstances that exist in Lynn Valley in terms of transportation and other infrastructure, this is not the time to add 397 units to Lynn Valley with an accompanying 481 parking stalls. In the 2022 election, I promised to support rental and affordable housing. This project is 84% strata. I thought it was interesting in the staff report, there was an Appendix B summary of public comments. It said nearly all commentators raised traffic and parking concerns, reoccurrent issues, congestion at Baird Road, Ross Road, and McDonald's drive-through. Existing lanes are narrow, long queues, and lack of pedestrian safety. And then infrastructure and public services. Strong sentiment that schools and childcare are already at capacity. Concerns that added residents will strain roads, transit, medical services, and recreational facilities. Now, if you were to ask residents in the district, what's our primary issue? They'd talk to you about things like not being able to get around because of failure of our transportation system. They might tell you about an elder who goes to the hospital and waits in a hallway for days at times before they get into a bed. They might talk about lack of capacity in our educational system, rec centers, and just general lack of infrastructure support for the population that we have. And adding this development is not the solution, even if there is talk of transit upgrades, support coming from the provincial government, maybe yes, maybe no. With the finances of the provincial government, I think we'd be well advised to be cautious about when and to what degree we're going to see infrastructure investments in the North Shore. By putting 397 units in this location at this time, in my view, we'd be putting the cart before the horse. We want to have the horse first. We want to have infrastructure first, clearing the way for population increases, not these large population increases without any corresponding plan for infrastructure to preserve our way of life on the North Shore. So for this reason, I will not be supporting this going to first reading.
Okay, thank you very much. Just my own comments on the matter. I got a bit of history on this. Used to live a couple blocks away on Frederick, and in the mid 2000s to late 2000s, we were dealing with the Lynn Valley local plan. And we had to break it down into parts because when we first tried to have the discussion about the whole central area, we couldn't come to an agreement on the hole in the donut. And we started talking about the periphery first and how we wanted it to be able to support a vibrant town center space. And so we initially left off the sort of Boza and shopping center site and talked about the area around it first, because we were able to come to some consensus about that. And then we had to have the subsequent discussion about the actual town center central piece, from basically the library down to 27th, and that included some more significant density on the site, or at least more significant massing, we'll say, on the site. We have 17-story towers in a bunch of locations in Lynn Valley, or they're currently there's work underway, and so the supportive area around those areas is scaled down until you transition out to the single-family neighborhoods and densities. And I know that the housing that's on there right now is beloved and serving an amazing purpose for people in the community, but it is actually a very underutilized site, considering it's so central to our town center. And so I am open to the change that's been proposed. I have a number of questions along the way about both the transportation management in the long run on the site, but also the construction traffic management as the project unfolds. I'm very curious about what other solutions can be put in place to address the traffic that will come out onto Baird, Herald, Sunnyhurst, Ross, the whole neighborhood. And then how you'll get it out onto collector roads and major infrastructure. I imagine about half of the traffic from the site will probably go west towards From, and about half will head towards Mountain Highway, Lynn Valley. But I need to be able to see how those intersections function in peak periods to see whether or not we're talking about failure of any of the supporting intersections. But the massing, we had a very long discussion with the community about 4 to 6 stories in those supportive areas, the ring, the donut around the town center being in those kinds of densities. We had a lot of discussions with the community at the time, so it shouldn't be entirely a surprise that this is the kind of level of density and massing that comes forward. I agree with some of the comments earlier about the replacement of the commercial spaces. I know that the market there is tricky to build for, but ultimately, if you have more people in the town center, you have to support them with more services and restaurant spaces and other amenities. And I think this does seek to do that. So I do believe that they've met the test to get first reading and be referred to a public hearing, where I look to have further answers to our questions about particularly the traffic management. I know construction traffic management typically waits until we have the building permit, but I think it is going to be deeply impactful because it's a very large project on the neighboring streets, and but also being a 3.5 acre site, it provides the opportunity to manage a lot of that construction traffic management within the site. And so I do want to also talk about that. But I think we're in the ballpark. I'm looking forward to this matter being referred to a public hearing for further discussion. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in agreement with a lot of things that have been said around this table. I live not very far from here, so I'm fully aware of what the congestion, the traffic, and all of that is. And I'm aware of how the initial planning happened back then. but there are a couple things that I think are pluses, and then there's a couple of things that I'm not sure about, and another couple of things that I don't think are good about it. But I'm open to listening in a public hearing so that I can hear from the residents and all of the people who are going to be affected by this. I do agree with comments that have been made about, I don't think it's ever been done in the district where when a developer came in to develop some units, they actually built first, moved the tenants over and then started construction on there. I don't recall that ever being done in the district. So I'm impressed with that style of what you've done. Along with that, though, comes the comments from some public people that they're getting into much smaller spaces. It may be the same rent, but they're getting smaller space. So if you take their rent per square foot, they are giving up some things. And there are a lot of families that are in that area. Sorry, I'm losing my voice today. I like the commercial space, and you have done it 1-for-1. And I mean, council's even been discussing commercial space down on Marine Drive and the type of commercial space you want on that first level. So I was impressed with your general comments that you've made about the kind of services are there, but I'm also concerned, like other councillors, of what kind of compensation or incentive or can you do for the commercial owners that are there now? Because they're actually going to lose. Their business will be taken over for the construction. So it's not quite as beneficial as it was for the residents. So I'm just wondering if there's anything that you can do for that. I think in general, change is really, really hard. I know when the developments first started in Lynn Valley Center, I went up there almost daily and took pictures because I was aghast at seeing, 4 floors, 5 floors, and then we got into some of the towers. And I know a lot of Lynn Valley was aghast at that. Now I go up there and I'm used to seeing it, and there's other buildings around it that makes it fit in. So I think part of you've made an effort to slope down transition to the housing. I think that's important. I'm not 100% sold on 6 stories. I'm willing to listen, see what else can be done. I do understand in this building market, though, in the development market, it's very tough to even break even on a development if you don't get a certain amount of units built. So I certainly want you to break even at least. I am very concerned about the parking, that number of parking spaces and that number of cars. Even though, we have other places in the district where we put in some density and it was right where the transit was going to be. And the people are not taking the transit, they're still taking their cars. So until there's more of a mode shift to transit, I don't think you can count on people just parking their car and taking transit for any great degree. So that's a concern of mine as well. I happen to live just south of this center, and I live between Lynn Valley Road and Mountain Highway. And if I want to go down Mountain Highway or down Lynn Valley Road to get down to the lower road, if it's 2 o'clock, I don't go. And that's just how I have to function in my community. I won't get down there without wasting an awful lot of time. So to have that bottleneck move even farther up into Mountain Highway and Lynn Valley Road, farther up, it's just going to compound everything that everybody below that has been living with for several years as far as traffic. But I am open to listening, and I do think it's important for proposals when they come up to get a fair chance for the community to voice their concerns and listen to it. So I'm in favor of just going to a public hearing.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. I see no other speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried 5-1 with Councillor Hanson opposed. And do we have a date in mind for when that public hearing is likely to take place?
Thank you, through your worship. The public hearing is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, April 14th.
Okay, so Tuesday, April 14th is our planned date. And so unfortunately, that can fluctuate. And so we need you to pay attention to the agenda in the week before, and we'll be able to confirm on the Wednesday before with our public agendas whether or not that ends up being the date. And we also will have letters and signs on the sites, whatever the date ends up being, will all be posted in many places in the community and also sent around to the neighbors. Okay, thank you very much. Next item up for discussion is item 8.3. And did we have a speaker signed up to speak to 8.3? 8.3 is conditional on 8.2. So if the council decides to proceed with 8.2 after the public hearing, then we would have to, as a part of that agreement, deal with 8.3, which is the proposed partial highway closure dedication removal for LVR for that same site. And so it is conditional on the other one. So I just wanted to check in. Okay, sorry. I thought we had a speaker that wanted to speak directly to that, but it's conditional on the other one. The appropriate place to have any comments on highway closure bylaw related to that site, that will be welcomed at the public hearing when that matter comes up.
Your worship, if I could just interrupt, I don't see the applicant. I'm just looking at the manager of real estate services. I don't see the adjacent owner, but there is the need to demonstrate an opportunity for and anyone with an interest in the matter to speak. So I just wanted to, if your worship,
Now
if you could
or
just
at the public hearing?
Now at the consideration of the bylaw for the road closure. So if the opportunity is there and the owner is available in the gallery, I just wanted to see if
the
that opportunity was
owner
available.
with an interest in that property wanting to speak to item 8.3, are they present, virtual or in person? Okay, well, then I would say we have created that opportunity, but I will say the public hearing, they can also have comment about the suitability of closing or changing road infrastructure in and around that space as well. So they will still also have an opportunity to speak directly to the matter. But council, I will look to you for a motion on item 8.3. I'm happy to move the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded by Councillor Back. I don't know if there's any need for just further discussion on that. It's all contingent on item 8.2 following public hearing. Prepared to call the question on the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, the next item up for discussion is item 8.4. This is rezoning bylaw 8770 for a 36-unit townhouse development at 526-550 Riverside Drive and 2194 Windridge Drive. Do we have Joe here wanted to speak to this item? Joe Gelich? Is it a Joe Gelich virtual participant? Oh, welcome. Come on up. You have 3 minutes to address the matter with council.
Thank you for having me. I wanted to introduce this project in a bit of a unique way. My name is Joe Galush. I'm the president of Nykun Contracting. We're a local construction company. We've been operating here for 17 years in North Vancouver. We have over 60 full-time employees, most of whom live in North Vancouver. And I'm the majority owner of the project being presented tonight at council. I wanted to speak tonight to contextualize this project from a community impact perspective. I'm not a real estate developer. We've done the odd subdivision here and there, primarily to support our construction company. I'm a builder and member of this community. I live at 625 Riverside Drive, which is just kitty corner to the project site. So my kids and I walk the road several times a week through Maplewood to the village for groceries, dentist, pizza on a Friday night. So I know this stretch of road. I know this neighborhood because we live in it. It's been exciting to watch the town center at Maplewood being realized over time. That's why we moved here. And we now see considerable rental, apartment, and condo inventory approved for this area. And there's not a lot of townhomes, the missing middle. So family-sized ownership housing, not a unit in the tower, not a rental, but a home with a front door that a family can own and grow into, and that's what's being proposed here. So being in control of this development allows us to find some creative ways for our staff, friends, and family to find a path into homes like these. And I can take a more holistic view than that of a typical developer while still finding a path to economic viability, hopefully, which is hard enough these days in this space. So my job is to keep employees working from the economic side, and we're facing serious economic downturn in construction connected to years of trouble in the real estate market. And as the builder of the project, our focus would be local. The employees, subcontractors, and partners who would build it are your neighbors. They spend their wages at our shops or restaurants and our local businesses. And coming from a small town, I know the impact that a project can have on community, and we need that right now. So I'd like to ensure that's taken into consideration tonight. From the public realm side, we all know this connector from the Mount Seymour Parkway to the Dollarton Highway, and it's nice to see that this town center is now being realized, but this stretch is unsafe. There's 4 aging homes on this site that have reached end of life, 3 pretty sketchy driveways that pop onto right at the terrible spot on this intersection. And our proposal removes all that, replaces it with a new bus pullout, proper sidewalks, a safer road, and pays for it. Wrapping up, the bike lane improvements along Mount Seymour Parkway, the recent Spirit Trail extension, the bus stop right out front. The site sits at the center of everything the district has invested to give our people real alternatives. And speaking with many, things have changed. Many young families now share one car, maybe have no car at all. And this site allows a walk to everything in need in Maplewood, or a bike, scooter, or transit for the rest. So that's not a compromise. It's a lifestyle choice that
to a close, that would be appreciated.
Yeah. So in closing, I'm a community member building homes for the community. This is the missing mill that the neighborhood needs, and it delivers real improvements for the public realm. I appreciate your consideration tonight, and hope to see this approved this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, council, looking for Councillor Hanson.
Move the staff recommendation.
Is there a seconder for the staff recommendation? Second by Councillor Ma. Your comments, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you to the proponent for the presentation. I will support this 36-unit townhouse development in this site. And in distinction to the last proposal we were talking about, this is much more modest, much more much more modest, much less density involved in the proposal. This site is part of the Maplewood Town Center. As the Maplewood Town Center develops, we can expect higher density development near to the town center and lower density near to the peripheries. This area will be that periphery. This townhouse development is consistent with the plan. The plan includes 8 lock-off suites. So the proposal involves 8 lock-off suites, which may contribute to rental housing. There is a significant demand for townhouses of this type, and this proposal is consistent with the development in the surrounding area. The proposal is relatively modest in scale, as I say. I acknowledge concerns about parking. The proposal calls for 34 resident spaces and 4 visitor spaces. The area is, however, served by transit. And I note that the proposal includes 622,000 in CACs. And I believe that can be of significant community benefit. And I hope that there'll be consideration to dedicating these CACs to affordable housing. I know coming up, the amenity cost charges, which will be restricted to by provincial legislation, are not available for affordable housing. But I understand these CACs are available for affordable housing, and I would regard that as a good use of these funds. And in that way, this project can make a contribution, along with the lock-off suites, potentially, to rental and affordable housing.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Similar thoughts. 38 townhouses with 8 lockoff suites. So, the owners have some options there, and townhouses are consistent with some of the projects in that area. I do note that it's 4 buildings, so from a design perspective, they will be, I believe, spread out a bit. So, there's some space to walk through. But I do have a couple of questions. It talks about having to remove trees, and there's 33 replacement trees. Do we have an idea of how many trees need to be taken down? Is it 1 for 1?
Yeah, Your Worship, I would like to introduce Mina Sami, the project planner on that and on this file, and she may be able to provide an answer.
Your Worship, to Councillor Ma, the proposal would require the removal of a significant number of trees, both on-site and off-site. The applicant has submitted an arborist report as part of the application due to the scale of the development and to mitigate the wildfire threat to the development. Many of the trees are recommended for removal. Several of the trees are in poor to moderate condition. There are 31 on-site trees, with 29 slated for removal and to be retained. Off-site trees, there are 34 trees, with 24 slated for removal and 10 to be retained. Additionally, 2 on-site trees and 7 off-site trees are recommended for removal to mitigate wildfire risk, as identified in the associated wildfire hazard report. With the proposed removal of a large diameter trees, 33 replacement trees have been required per the arborist report to be planted at appropriate location on-site or along the Riverside and Windridge Drive. Currently, 26 trees are shown on the landscape drawings. However, the site is under review for off-site improvements. A more detailed landscape design will be provided at the development permit stage.
Thank you. I think if my council colleague, Councilor Murray, was here, she would probably bring up a comment about that area being an ecological issue. So I understand that some of the trees need to be removed, and don't know how many are dead or damaged, but how do we protect the environment at the same time that we're taking trees down and also, having new trees planted?
Your Worship, happy to jump in from a general policy perspective, which I believe is the intent of the question. So from the perspective of trees, we always look to meeting multiple objectives. So of course, the health of the forest. So sometimes the trees have to come down because of poor health and safety concerns, but also wildfire mitigation. We don't want to create situations where we encourage the potential for fire, either moving from the urban forest into the adjacent development or vice versa. And then finally, we look to replacing trees as much as possible with various standards for open space and replanting requirements within our guidelines. We believe that the development achieves the objectives set out by council in policy and guidelines for the replacement. When it comes to development, we have to be cognizant that if council does not approve the density permitted under the zone that's proposed, that we would be having to pay compensation typically for development if it was diminished. In this case, there's a rezoning application though, so we're able to negotiate for significant replacement and improvement, and that's reflected in the drawings you see before you.
Okay. If I can ask a follow-up question on the parking, there's not quite a 1-for-1 in that area, so that's what I'm just trying to understand the ratio. And I'm also trying to understand that I believe the parking in the reports that they're unbundled. So I would hate to be the last person buying, or, there might not be any parking saved for that. So how's that going to be working? Because to me, that area, looking at the plans, there are going to be other developments. So the availability of street parking is going to be a premium. There's also a lot of work trucks that use those roads now. So we're going to have an issue down there, notwithstanding that, we keep talking, as a previous councillor mentioned, we keep hearing from TransLink that, transit is coming, but I don't believe their priority is this area to start with. So I just want to get some thoughts on that in terms of whether the thoughts behind the parking ratio.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Ma. So there are 38 units and then there are 34 vehicle parking spaces and then 4 dedicated visitor parking. And so, 36 units and then 34 vehicle parking spaces. So that's about 0.9, something like 0.9 parking stall per unit. And this is within the threshold of the AVPR, the alternative parking, vehicle parking policy of the district. And when we're looking at the proposed parking for this application, in exchange for a reduced parking rate, the applicant need to provide what we call the TDM measure, the Transportation Demand Management Measure. And in this particular case, that it's based on the point system. And this particular applicant is providing 30 points, which is, beyond the typical residential requirement. And I can list out some of the features, which is, including the shared bicycle fleet, and bicycle maintenance facility, and transit stop improvements, and then also communication with tenants about bus services and multimodal wayfinding and information system and public bike maintenance stand, as well as transit pass, including 100% subsidy for a 4 months 2-zone transit pass per unit upon request by the residents. So that is a higher TDM points. And I think the applicant was also alluding to in his introduction is that this is a little bit different than some of the other townhouse in this area, this is aiming for a starter home, young professional starting their, the first home buying. And so I think in comparison to, say, the Heritage Park Lane, I think the ratio for that one is 1.5, which that application, most of the townhouse development in this area have family size units, which is 3 to 4 bedroom units. And so this parking ratio is similar to Maplewood Garden, Maplewood Plaza, and Northwoods, that development where there is the Stone site. And so overall, from a policy perspective, this parking ratio do meet the bylaw and policy.
Thank you for that. We need housing on the North Shore. We also need projects here to keep people employed. So thank you for the previous speaker for bringing that point up. I am supportive of this for first, second, and third reading, but I just want to clarify something because this is consistent to OCP under the new guidelines. We cannot have a public hearing, even though there's a rezoning. Is that correct? Like, would this have gone to a public hearing previous to Bill 44 and all those other bills?
7 years ago, it would have been required to have a public hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker I have is Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of questions. Regarding the addition of a bike lane along Mount Seymour Parkway and along Riverside, don't we already have a bike lane there? On both of those spots?
Your worship to Councillor Pope. So there is a demarcated bike lane along Riverside on the east side, but not along the frontage of this particular site. So this one, as a result of this application, there will be dedicated bike lane.
So as it stands now, because I've ridden it, it just goes up to Windridge and then turns off for the Spirit Trail. Right? Instead of going all the way to Mount Seymour Parkway, is that the difference?
Yeah, you can still go up to Mount Seymour Parkway and then turn right, and then there's a dedicated bike lane. So, but there is no demarcated dedicated bike lane along the frontage of Riverside here. So you can go along Windridge for the Spirit Trail, or you can go along MSP. Yes.
And it also says that it's adding it to Mount Seymour Parkway, but we definitely have a bike lane there already.
Correct.
Do we not? Yes. So that actually is something that is already there. I wonder if the funds that
Sorry, where in the report does it say added on Parkway?
everywhere, including on the site plan from the staff report on page 5.
Through your worship, if I'm,
Please.
I think it is just to a dedicated bike lane along Riverside that will be connecting to the existing bike lane along MSP. Like a new intersection design that will connect that dedicated bike lane along Riverside to that existing bike lane along Mount Seymour Parkway.
Right. Okay. Well, it's just the way the staff report is written that one of the benefits will be an additional bike lane along Mount Seymour Parkway, which isn't correct. It's already there.
I'm still just trying to find the spot in the report where it says that.
Probably under transportation somewhere. I'm sorry, I don't have it highlighted in front of me, but I'll move on if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm also really concerned about the large diameter trees, and I urge the contractor to find ways to reduce the number of large diameter trees that are removed. Yeah, I hate seeing that happen. I know they get replaced, but I just hate it when it's just, kind of clear cut and maybe a few on the corners could be left or here or there. 600,000 in community benefits is awesome. I would like to have that allocated to the Affordable Housing Fund. And that to me serves the purpose of obviously building more affordable housing, which is what we need. So all in all, I'm prepared to support the project. I think it's very, very favorable.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. Councillor Forbes. Yes.
Wasn't sure who you said. Thank you. 36 units is a good amount to add to our inventory. I'm pleased to see that. The fact that it has 8 lock-off suites means that potentially that can be opened up to some rental in there because the rest are all stratified. It is consistent with the existing forms that are mainly down in the Maplewood area. The 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom. I guess I'm kind of wondering how big is the unit for a 4 bedroom? But that's a question I have. I also have a question about the underground parking. Because you're in a relative floodplain area. And so I'm wondering when you're going to go down for your parking, what kind of studies have you done on that? Because I'm quite concerned about that.
I think I'll, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Forbes, I will start answering the question from a staff review perspective, but maybe I think the applicant would be able to address those questions. I think the parquet design is just above the FCL in this particular case. So sorry. Yes, that was just above the flat construction level. It is shown on the actual architectural drawing that the groundwater is just below the parquet design. And then it's a very good question because the parquet design couldn't actually go down 1 level because of where the underground water sits. So it's a tricky site. So with that, I'll hopefully pass it on to the applicant to address this as well.
The applicant, do you have a further response to the question?
Good evening. Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah, so just quickly to speak to, we do have active water monitoring that's been going on for the last 2 to 3 years. So every month or a few weeks, and then now through the wet season, it's checked so that we have calibrated levels. So we have the flood control level, but then we also have the actual data. We have one level of underground, which has been able to accommodate the 38 stalls. And a big part of the design is, could we possibly fit any additional stalls in there? And the water level is the main issue. So that's why we've landed at the number that we have. Yeah.
Are you going to be checking it this week with the
Yeah.
equipment?
Yeah. Well, not me personally, but the geotech definitely will. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then they,
Oh, yeah. And then just to the 4-bedroom question. So with the 4-bedroom with the lock-off, it's about 1,700 square feet.
Really?
Yep. And then this, as an overall development with the 36 units, so 14 of them are in that sort of 500 square foot range. And then we have stacked, and then we have double stacked. And so we've really been able to achieve like the full breadth of possible options. And then if you go back to the parking ratio, if you look at the smaller units, we have that at about a 0.7 or a 0.8. And then all of the larger units are at a 1.1. And that's within the existing number of stalls that we have, plus the visitor. So it's a pretty complicated project, but in a good way.
That's good. How many 4-bedrooms do you have though?
12. Was it
12?
4?
4.
8, 3, 4, 4s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's about 10%.
Nice. Don't hear it very often. There are accessibility units, different levels of accessibility, but there's a total of 4,
Sure.
2 that are already and 2 that can be made into it to meet it. So I like that idea as well. All of the parking is level 2 chargers. I like that. And one thing I feel the same way about the trees. I mean, if you take down a large diameter tree, no matter how many you put up, you're going to be waiting 20 years to get anything near to what you took down. So
Absolutely. If I just speak to that, thanks for bringing it up. So the main sort of push with the trees is actually just the response to policy requirements. So as we've gone through this application and those policy adjustments have been made over the years in response to, the extensive wildfires and all those impacts, those have led to sort of incremental adjustments to which trees are allowed to be kept. So it isn't so much applicant-led, can we please get rid of all these trees? It's more like we're required to because of setting and, this kind of thing. So
yeah.
I think as a broader discussion, it's an absolutely pertinent question for this site in particular. But then at a policy level, we understand sort of why it's led to the state of the current application. And that's absolutely something that we'll bring back and sort of report back on as this moves forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can just state that I share the sentiment. So whatever we can do, we'll try and do
We're spoiled on the
as a
North Shore
member.
with colored tall trees.
100%.
Okay. I think that was, the last thing I'll just mention is I was impressed that you're going to have a stormwater retention tank so that you'll be able to control the flow into our system. So like on weeks like this, if your building was built, it wouldn't flood the stormwater drains. So I think that's really good that you've added that in there. Also, hearing your pitch that you're a small builder, building in the community, you have employees that you would like to see get started on into the housing market. I think that's a really good philosophy. So thank you very much.
Councilor Forbes, Councilor Pope.
Simply wanted to answer your question, Mr. Mayor. The reference to Mount Seymour Parkway is on page 107, about 2/3 of the way down.
Your worship, staff can provide a clarification. I believe Peter Cohen has pulled up the existing infrastructure description.
Through the mayor, good evening, council. So what the particular situation here is that, yes, you're correct, Councillor Pope, there is an existing bike facility on Mount Seymour Parkway. What's part of this particular application is the transition from the intersection of Riverside and Mount Seymour Parkway with that off-street facility on Riverside and a transition zone that needs to happen along Mount Seymour Parkway to get to the existing facility. And so while it's not a new bike infrastructure link, it's an improved bike infrastructure link in front of this property on Mount Seymour Parkway.
But the Riverside portion's new. Yeah. Okay. Just my own comments on the matter. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by some of the densities that are currently in the Maplewood plan. I'm not pointing fingers at this development specifically, but in the council from 2014 to 2018, some significant changes were made to a number of the neighborhood areas around Maplewood. And so those densities do sit on these properties through the OCP. So in other neighborhoods, the council approved a neighborhood plan. And then as the projects came up, we had discussions about changing the OCP on that particular project. Maplewood was done in a different way in the 2014 to 2018 council. They had the discussion about the local area plan and then immediately changed the OCP to reflect what the discussion was about the official community plan. And so what it means is that local area plan is already reflected in law on the OCP. And so under the new regulations from the province, as Councillor Ma alluded to, there are no public hearings on those matters. And so they are pre-approved to some degree. Well, the council still has a free vote on whether they want to approve the project or not. We just don't have to have a public hearing on it. And I believe there are also some constraints on our what reasons we can use to oppose a particular development. I don't. But I don't think this particular property is the controversial one in some of those developments. The only thing I will say is that I recognize it's a brownfield site and it's being redeveloped. We do need to be intentional about making connections through from the Wild Bird Trust into the wetlands of Maplewood and up to Hogan's Pools, which takes you up into the wilderness for a lot of the migrating birds that do go through that area. And so we do want to see tree retention and replacement wherever we reasonably can, but it is a disturbed site. It's also not on the complex, steep portion of the street. And also, while there definitely are some parking challenges on the lower one, they're nowhere near as acute as they are at the top up near Tanager. And so I don't know that that's as big of a concern on the site. So I tend to be in support of this general level of density. I would have liked to have seen a higher ratio of family size units, particularly in this proximity to the town center. I think you're better off with your studios and ones closer to the town center services and then moving to more family size units as you sort of step away. So I would have liked to have seen a higher ratio of family size units, but it's not out by enough for me to want to hold this up at this point. So I'll be supportive of the redevelopment of this project as proposed and as in the staff recommendation. Are there any other comments on the matter? Prepared to call the question? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Very much. The next item up for discussion is item 8.5, which is the 2026 to 2030 financial plan approval bylaw 8790. There has been a relatively minor amendment since the last time we had discussion on this particular financial plan. And so I'm going to look to staff to sort of fill us in on the slight differences between, or Mr. Fox, if you want to comment, or go to Rick first. First.
Thank you, Mayor Little. The financial plan bylaw is recommended for first three readings tonight, following a comprehensive budget process, including an extended period of public input. The staff report reflects minor changes arising from council deliberations last week and council direction to prepare the financial plan bylaw based on a property tax increase at 3.53%. So the minor changes were an additional $40,000 to address, excuse me, the Oh my gosh, the
Lynn Valley Youth and the tree life ringing for
I'm
invasive.
trying not to use the word ivy. Invasive, thank you,
Invasive species. There you go.
Councillor Back. $40,000 for invasive species. The intention there is to address approximately 2,000 trees per year over multiple years, up to 10 years, I believe. And then in addition to that, there was $25,000 set aside to extend the youth coordinator for that youth service in Lynn Valley. And then finally, the financial plan bylaw is scheduled for adoption on April 13th and must be adopted in advance of the tax distribution workshop on April 20th.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll be moving the staff recommendation on this, that this be given first, second, and third readings. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Hansen. Yeah, we've had quite a number of public discussions about this already. I mean, obviously, we don't really want to be up at 3.5%. We would prefer that it was lower, but we have some very significant challenges facing the municipality, and this is attempting to address those. I'm actually more concerned about the outer years of our financial plan than I am about where we're at immediately. As we start to look at our aging facilities in the community and how they're going to line up, not in the next 5 years, but in the 5 years after that, I think it's going to really wall up the community with capital expenditures to be able to maintain the services as they are, particularly if we can't rely on density and development to be contributing to those areas. And so it's the outer years I'm more concerned about than the short-term impact on it. Having said that, we have to keep pressure on us to tighten our belt and find ways to save as a municipality, all the while knowing that a lot of our cost pressures are actually quite out of our hands when our construction costs are coming back far above the predicted values still, when we're told that our inflation rates have all dropped and declined, and yet our contracts are still coming back so high. I've seen construction contracts in the $750 a square foot range for spaces. And when I started with the district, it was $250 a square foot for construction in the community. And so there's just been such a massive escalation in the cost to be able to actually build in our community. And we're not talking about luxury stuff here. We're talking about trying to create accessible public spaces. And so I'm very concerned about what our outer years are going to look like, and the financial challenges we have in coming towards the municipality 5 years out. On top of us, obviously dealing with the pressures that are put on us with the wastewater treatment plant onboarding of the utility charges for that, which again, we continue to press Metro Vancouver for a more fair assessment of our contribution to the wastewater treatment plant. As it stands right now, I cannot see it as being fair at all to get the exact same level of service as they have in other sub areas, but you pay 3 times as much for the same level of service in North Vancouver than you pay in some of the other sewerage sub areas. I find that to be unfair through no fault of our own as a sub area. Metro Vancouver was in charge of that project. Metro Vancouver was in charge of cost containment on that project. Metro Vancouver picked the site, picked the contractor, fired the contractor. All of the decision-making capabilities that have led to the massive cost escalation have been in the hands of Metro Vancouver. And I get that there's no question there's other impacts because the market's entirely changed. Definitely have seen that fixed price contracts since 2019 have kind of gone out the window because most of the people who had fixed price contracts between 2019 and 2022 lost their shirt and probably lost their businesses. And so going back to the market and trying to get some certainty in this day and age is a huge challenge. The new way of managing those major projects is open book, where you basically say, well, what's the spring price of concrete? What's the spring price of steel? And then we'll do the next tranche of work on the project. I don't know how the public can accept that level of uncertainty over the costs, but we also are required to deliver infrastructure, including this one being a federal mandate. I don't have good answers to these questions. It's just something that we have to make sure that we're talking to the community, making them aware of the impacts and risks. But again, for our own house, we're talking about a household impact of about $105 increase. I think, is that the ballpark, 125 or 105? 103. So at a time when the provincial government has added almost $3,000. Oh, sorry, the provincial government over $3,000 in debt per household this last year. The federal government has added just under $3,000 in debt per household this year on your behalf. We are wrestling around an entirely different ballpark. This will add $103 to an average house in the district of North Vancouver. But just because they're small numbers doesn't mean that we don't have to keep the pressure up to keep them down. And so I will be supportive of this budget, and I want to express my appreciation to staff for reflecting council's priorities in this project and working through challenging environments to find savings. We do appreciate the extra efforts that you have taken to do that, and I will be voting in favor. Is the seconder on the matter? Councillor Hanson, do you have comments?
I do. Thank you, Mayor Little. Thank you for your comments, and I thank finance staff for the work they've done. I am pleased to vote in favor of the 2026 to 2030 financial plan approval bylaw. As has been stated, the plan calls for tax increases of 3.53% here on in. I'm going to just refer that as 3.5%, with 2% being for operations and 1.5% for infrastructure renewal. Going forward, and here I agree with Mayor Little, I believe that it is important that tax increases stay in this range, 3.5% with 2% for operations and 1.5% for infrastructure. I do not and will not support sustained tax increases beyond the level of inflation going forward. To keep the 2026 tax increase to 3.5%, we have developed a plan to reduce operating expenses by $5 million. And I thank everyone involved in making these difficult decisions to fight operational efficiencies and reduce costs by $5 million. The plan also calls for manageable increases to debt. Our debt stays within a very realistic level over the next 5 years, and a drawing down of reserves through to 2027, after which the plan calls for the reserves to be replenished. Now, I would say that going forward, I believe it is very important that we monitor our performance against this plan very carefully. If, in fact, the assumed revenue sources fail to materialize, it is important that we change course before jeopardizing the financial health of the district. The 5-year plan must be monitored to ensure that we are not going further into debt than forecast, nor unduly depleting our reserves. In terms of revenue, I'd like to see further advocacy in amending the Ports Property Tax Act. If the large businesses covered by the Ports Property Tax Act paid their proportionate share of tax, we would have approximately $4.5 million in extra revenue, almost exactly the amount we are required to cut from our operations in 2026 to keep our tax increases to 3.5%. Another issue that must be carefully monitored is RCMP overtime, which has been placing significant additional costs on district taxpayers. However, all that said, I do believe that the proposed plan strikes a reasonable balance, and I thank everyone involved in creating it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Batt.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to find my comments. Thank you. I want to start by thanking staff again for the significant amount of work that goes into preparing the financial plan every year and guiding us through the budget process. These discussions involve an enormous amount of time, analysis, planning, and coordination across our whole organization. I also want to acknowledge the residents who took the time to provide feedback during the budget engagement process. Hearing from the community is an important part of shaping these decisions. These budget decisions are never easy. Each year we're faced with the challenge of balancing services and infrastructure residents rely on with the financial pressures that we know many households are experiencing. While I will be supporting this budget tonight, as I have through the process, I think it's important to acknowledge something clearly, and that's that this budget does include some significant reductions across a number of areas of the organization, which my colleagues have alluded to, and residents are likely going to notice some of these changes. One example that stands out to me are parks and trails. Our parks and trails and natural spaces are one of the defining features of this community. There's something residents cherish and what helped make the district of North Vancouver such a special place to live. It's where we walk our dogs and take our kids for a hike, meet friends, or spend time outdoors. And those experiences are a big part of why life here is so special. And over many years, council has recognized the need to build up our capacity in parks to properly maintain and manage these spaces. And we have made a lot of progress on that. But this budget does, in some ways, move us in a different direction. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. At the same time, expectations around parks are continuing to grow, whether it's trail maintenance, climate adaptation, wildfire risk reduction, or protecting natural areas, all of which rely on having the right level of staffing and resources in place. And more importantly for residents, it means that some important parks and trails projects, we heard clearly from the residents in Lynn Valley over the Hastings Creek trail closure, they're going to be delayed or scaled back. And that's something that people will notice. So I think it's important that we are transparent about that. As I've said, these kind of decisions are never easy because the services and amenities we provide are part of what make our community such a great place to live. I also want to note, as we look to the future, and that's our job as a council, we need to look at all of our infrastructure and facilities. And another issue that this budget highlights for me is the aging recreation facilities in our community. Facilities like Karen Magnuson and Ron Andrews, which are incredibly important community assets, are also aging facilities. And so far, we have not made a lot of progress in planning for their eventual renewal. And these kind of projects, they take many, many years to plan and deliver. And we know that the longer we wait to start the planning, the more expensive these projects will be over time. A good example of this is the new Harry Jerome Recreation Center in the city, which illustrates just how complex and costly modern rec facilities can be. So these are important conversations that we'll need to have as a community in the years ahead. At the same time, I understand the approach council has taken this year, and I will take my extra 2 minutes if I can. For the second time tonight, which probably is the second time this term I've done that. We're all very aware of the uncertainty surrounding the North Shore wastewater treatment plant, as the mayor has highlighted, the potential financial implications that this project could have for residents for many years to come. And given that uncertainty, there's a strong desire around the table to keep property taxes as low as possible. I don't want to pay more tax than we need to, and nobody does, and this budget reflects that balancing act. In many ways, what we're seeing in this financial plan is a reflection of that ongoing kind of tension, holding the line on taxes while still maintaining those services and infrastructure that our community depends on. So looking ahead, there are tough conversations to be had about those outer years of this plan. I think we need to be honest about to ourselves and the community, and we're going to have some serious conversations about priorities. We're going to have to start our conversation with budgeting about priorities. What does our community value? And I think this year, and rightfully so, we started with what do we want the percentage increase to be? And I think we can all agree we want that to be as low as possible, but what are we giving up? And this is what I'm trying to highlight tonight, is that we are going to there's going to be significant reductions that residents will notice. It's part of our responsibility as council to think not just about today's pressures, but about the community that we're leaving behind for the next generation. As someone who's grown up here, that's something that I think about often. So tonight I will be supporting the financial plan, and I want to thank again staff and my colleagues for the hours of work that have gone into the process. And I look forward to the challenging conversations that the community will have to have as we look to the future. But that's what I'll say for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted a clarification, and then I've been informed from Councillor Ma that there was an addendum that came out to the financial amendment this morning. Is that correct?
Through your worship, Councillor Forbes. There wasn't an amendment. All of the changes are reflected in the report. There was a request for a change a little later in the day.
You talked to the change.
Well, change it as a follow-up
There we go.
motion.
Sorry?
It's a follow-up motion if you want.
Well, I was just going to say, I think what Councillor Forbes is referring to is the addendum on the financial plan for public input that was sent out on Friday. Wasn't it on Friday or Thursday?
Oh, sorry, the agenda addendum went out Friday, but
on Friday.
You're asking about changes to the plan, is that correct?
I'll let Councillor Ma handle that, but I just wanted to clarify, because he's got his computer and I don't, but just before he starts, I just want to clarify, and it'll be part of probably what he's talking about. You said 25,000 for the Karen Magnuson rec center, but the motion on the floor, the recommendation is 50,000. Can you explain that?
There are two parts to it. So the part that was debated last week was around extending the youth coordinator for an additional 25,000. That's one-time extension. And on the table, I think that discussion is coming up.
Before we pass this recommendation?
Through the chair, no. We were going to do it the other way, but the first motion that was put on the floor is about the financial plan and accepting that. Then there was a motion arising from the financial plan that administration wants to bring forward because it relates to some of the budget adjustments that have happened. So we will be talking about that after the budget if council passes budget.
I'm the mover of the motion. I mean, I'm happy to amend it on the floor to this amended version. I think just to clarify for members of the public who are listening into our conversation here, just some background on it. The municipality has had a youth fund tied to capital in Lynn Valley for a long time. It was originally recommended in a referendum in 1996. It was funds were put into it in the early 2000s, and it's sort of sat locked with very limited uses that you could use it for. And now that council last week decided to add an operational funding for a youth facilitator in Lynn Valley, the question has come up with, can we use some of the funds that have been set aside since the early 2000s to create a space for them to work out of? And so the proposal that is considered here, and you're right, I put forward the staff recommendations on the floor, but I'm more than happy to amend my motion to consider that issue, is that the council authorized up to 50,000 for capital requirements to create a temporary youth center at Karen Magnuson Community Center funded from the Lynn Valley Youth Center Reserve. So again, it's not a new taxation item. It's a reserve that was set up for the purposes of producing, paying for capital to support a youth center in Lynn Valley. So while that project meets all of the requirements of that reserve fund, it still needs to be activated by the council to make it happen. Now, at the beginning of the meeting, I was under the impression that we were going to do it as a follow-up motion, but if this meets the CFO's requirements for documenting it properly, then I will maybe ask Councillor Pope to propose an amendment. And that includes that.
I'd be happy to do that. I have been working on this diligently. So I would like to propose the motion that the budget include the recommendation that council authorizes up to 50,000 for capital requirements to create a temporary youth center at Karen Magnuson Community Center funded from the Lynn Valley Youth Center Reserve.
And I'll second that amendment. Discussion on the amendment. Councillor Ma?
So is this 50,000 in addition to the 25?
That's correct. The 25 is operations. The 50,000 is for couches and TVs and paint and other things for an area of the rec center to create a space for them from the youth fund.
We sure have change. I thought we don't try to do things on the fly.
Yeah.
We're in the budget process.
We had a discussion last week. It's more this process. 50,000 isn't going to break the bank, and it's for a good cause, but it's just a process. We had a discussion last week, and council said 25,000, great. This shows up, there's little confusion, so yeah.
Can I clarify, please?
I think Mr. Fox has some additional comments first.
Yeah, through the chair, the discussion last week was around a youth center down at Karen Magnuson, that the 25,000 would support this youth worker to continue to work. Since then, and in the discussion, there was talk around the reserve and what it would be used for. It is for capital improvements to create a youth center. So when we went away, we want to make sure the youth center can actually be activated this summer. So Councillor Pope had addressed it with myself. So that's why we did do a motion arising, because it has to do with the financial plan. And to make sure it's successful, they do need to put some paint on it, some capital improvements to the space. And Councillor Pope had talked to the group to find out what that financial contribution would be. And it wasn't the full amount of the reserve. It's up to $50,000. So again, administration can make this happen through this way by activating the reserves. So it was in discussions, and administration did agree that the intent of the conversation was to activate a youth center down in this space.
Further discussion on the amendment? Councillor Forbes?
Again, same as what Councillor Ma said, it's the process, not the outcome. This doesn't seem to have been communicated to all of council. Councillor Ma and I are a little taken back by it. And I'm assuming you said that Councillor Pope has spoken to the Lynn Valley Community Association or other reps that they're okay that they use this money out of the reserve fund?
Yes, absolutely. It is. This whole discussion was generated by the Lynn Valley Services Society and the Lynn Valley Community Association wanting it to move forward. And so I would like to just reinforce that this is from the reserve fund that's been there since 2001, which is $260,000. So
I have no disagreement with that. I'm just saying that they understand it's going to come out of their reserves, which is going to lower the reserve, the amount of money.
Yes, of course they do. They do. This is what they thought they were speaking to when they came to our meeting last time, and this is what I had thought was very clear from the intent of council during all the discussions about adding 25,000 to the budget for the staff workers so we could get the youth center open. So my apologies if that wasn't perfect in its process.
Doesn't need to be perfect. It just was never, this was not what I was expecting, nor Councillor Ma. But if they're okay with it, the other reason I thought that we hadn't established any draw on the reserve was because it's temporary at Karen Magnuson, because it will be coming up for renewal or rebuild or whatever. So this is a temporary thing. So I guess 50,000 for capital would be things like capital instruments that can be used when they get a permanent home.
That is correct. They could be used again when we get a permanent home, and it's for things like painting, covers, furniture, equipment, the big screen TVs, the gaming consoles, those kinds of things. So in my opinion, it's very likely it won't be that much money, but we just want to leave that open.
Okay. the process was a little sketchy there. Some of us weren't
I'm
quite
happy to
aware.
clarify that. So this isn't in addition to the budget. It's not contingent
No, I
on
know,
the
it's out of
budget.
the reserve.
It's money that was already approved for this kind of a purpose. The proposal to unlock those reserve funds and apply them to a project can come at any time from council. It doesn't have to go through the budget process because the source of funds is already identified. This is our big challenge as we go through the budgeting processes. We have to tie it into taxation in most cases, but this one already has a reserve that's set aside for that purpose. So it really just needs a direction from council to apply the reserve for that purpose. So while it is in a motion with the financial plan, it's actually not contingent on that financial plan.
Sorry. No, there's a comment made earlier. Is there reserve? Is the correct way of phrasing that it's the district reserves. It's not a society's reserve. All respect to Lynn Valley Services Society or Services Association. It's for council to decide.
That's what we're doing.
And given enough time to have some thought about this as opposed to having it just sprung, it makes it for a very challenging decision. On one hand, no one wants to vote against youth. Okay, we all want stuff for youth. I'm trying to get a report coming about youth council that this council rejected in a previous time, and I'm trying to work with other councillors on that. Yeah, this leaves not a great taste, but I guess lesson learned.
Okay. Do you have a contrary motion or something else that you'd like to propose, Councillor, or you're supportive of the motion?
I'll vote on it when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pope, please.
Yes, thank you. I just noticed the second line in there and that this change is reflected in the first financial plan bylaw amendment this spring. No, it needs to be in this budget now so that they can start using the money to get things done next week.
Next week is spring, so here we go, Mr. Fox.
All right, just want to clarify.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. That's just when it will be amended into the financial plan. This unlocks, the motion unlocks the spending from the reserve immediately after, if it is approved. If the motion fails, then of course it wouldn't be, but if it passes, then it would be, and then it would just show up in the financial plan in the spring, as we'd have to change it and add it in.
Councillor Back on the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I just wanted to say I'm clear on this. I feel like it was clear through our council discussions how we would fund the outfit of this youth space. And of course, it came out of the original report that I brought to council, which came in response to the Lynn Valley Community Association. And it was all around this reserve fund that has been sitting for many, many years. And they want to see it spent on what it was intended, and that is some sort of youth facility, youth center in Lynn Valley. So that was clear to me throughout all of our discussions. I kind of see this as sort of a housekeeping item, but I'm sorry that there's sort of heat around the issue. I do feel like it was clear that in order to outfit the youth center, it would be from this fund.
Thank you. Councillor Forbes on the amendment.
Can we break the 50,000 out and do it separately like you said it was originally going to be? It's not that we're against this, it's the process, and having it lumped in with this motion, this recommendation, just.
Council American.
So if the amendment passes, then yes, I can bifurcate the separate sections. But first, we're just having a debate on the amendment being added.
Okay.
And so there is no bifurcation because we're only talking about the one clause.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like it's separate.
Yep, that's fine. Councillor Ma.
Who's going to manage the fund? I take it it's going to be
it will be still under finance's control with the Recreation Commission. It's our facility. But there's no question that it's being done in partnership with LVSS. I think Adele Wilson's been the person advising on what they would need for the space, as she's the former executive director of Parkgate Community Services, where they have a youth center. Any additional comments? No? Okay, you're done? Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Back to the original, or back to the now amended motion. I think I already spoke to the original motion. Did I? Yeah, okay. So any other speakers on the original motion? Councillor Ma, is that from the amendment, or are you speaking to the now amended motion? Okay, all right. I'm prepared to call the question. I see no further speakers. I'm prepared to call the question on the amended motion. There has been a request to bifurcate. And so I will separate. I think it makes sense that we just separate out the first clause from the second and third clause as a group. So we'll do it as 2 votes. So the first vote is that on that the 2026 to 2030 financial plan approval bylaw 8790 is given first, second, and third reading. That was originally moved and seconded. I'm prepared to call the question on the matter. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Then we'll take clauses 2 and 3 as a group, and just want to be clear. I think I was the original mover of the financial plan. Who was my original seconder? Do you know that still?
Thank you, through worship. The seconder was Councillor Hanson.
So do you want the same mover and seconder, or are you okay with me switching mover and seconder because the amendment came forward from Councillor Pope?
The amendment will reflect Councillor Pope as the mover, so it's in order just to have it be.
So I seconded it, so it's now moved and seconded by Councillors Pope and myself. Prepared to call the question on clauses 2 and 3. Yeah. It's clear that we're voting on paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. Okay. I see no further speakers.
Sorry.
Okay, Councillor Mo.
There's different segments of our population that, you know, we're all trying to make better for the seniors, the families, the youth. To have the discussion at this point for over $50,000 can be interpreted as an indictment of this council. For how many years has this not been done? I'm part of this council. We want to move forward. We're trying to move forward together. For some of us tonight, this was a surprise. If this was so clear at the last discussion, that's clarity is only in certain people, it's not the full council. Be put in a position where we can't have a discussion, like $50,000 isn't gonna kill this budget, but at the same time, if we had other plans, you know, do we really want to spend that $50,000 now? So that's the issue, and that's the discussion that we never had because this wasn't discussed. Thank you.
Okay, I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question on clauses 2 and 3. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. And thank you, Rick and your team, for all the great work you've done on the financial plan. I know it's not easy when there's such pressures, but thank you for the work that you've done.
There's just kind of correction I have to
So we're going to move on to item 8.6, and I will say that there's a minor correction that we want to put on the floor here. Genevieve Lance says comment.
Yes, thank you, through your worship. This is just to draw attention to the fact that there's an administrative correction on pages 194 to 195 of the agenda package. There was a missed numbering under the definitions section. So this is just correcting that administrative error. So it'll be renumbered to start Municipal Emergency Response Plan as M, going forward through then as West Vancouver CAO being listed as U of the lettering.
Got it. So there was accidentally two subsection N's, and so now they have to be renumerated. Got it. Okay. I'm going to be moving the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder on the matter? There's seconded by Councillor Pope. I think we should probably have some discussion from, I don't know, Mr. Fox, this is your report. Do you have some comment about the nature of the changes to the agreement between the municipalities?
Sure. Yeah, it's really common practice to review bylaws after time. And when I came in, this bylaw was already being reviewed. There was some blurred reporting lines that has been corrected through this process. And also clear reporting direction. And then just also making sure there's a review on the fiscal shape of North Shore Emergency Management by an audit, and it names that the district is going to be responsible for that. So in conversations with both the city and the West Vancouver there, we have made all the changes. It has been reviewed by all three lawyers, and we're bringing it forward for an updated version. This also, the bylaw has also incorporated the EDMA provisions that are looking to come into effect in early 2027, I believe. So with that, it's major, just really looking at the house cleaning and just trying to make the direction in the bylaws more clear.
What was that acronym you used?
EDMA. So I can, sorry, I should have said what that one is there. It's, where is it here? It's Emergency and Disaster Management Act.
Thank you very much. Okay. To disambiguate. There you go. Okay, well, just my own comments on the matter. I mean, as the former chair of the North Shore Emergency Management Office, there's no question that there were a number of complicating challenges with the existing legislation that we had. So I may not be common knowledge, but if you had an emergency happen, even if it was specific to one municipality, there were still provisions to rotate between the three different municipalities for incident command, or a bunch of the different leadership positions within the organization. So you'd have a major incident in the District of North Vancouver, and technically for a time, it'd be the city manager or the West Van manager or someone else filling in an incident command from the other municipalities. And we thought that that probably needs to be updated to make sure that when it is localized within a particular municipality, that municipality plays a leadership role in the response recovery. This is when we had the floods in October 19th of 2024, we had to declare a state of local emergency. We were first having to try to figure out who's actually going to be the incident commander on the situation, and we kind of had to just put Peter Cohen in from engineering to help us with our fire chief, even though that's not really the way the organization was set up. So this sort of formalizes what we had already been doing with North Shore Emergency Management in that regard. We also will be taking some of the planning function and support and better utilizing our existing first responders, fire in particular, mechanisms to address those areas. We also I just wanted to restate that the North Shore Emergency Management kind of has to stay rather acutely focused on 72 hours of relief. They need to be able to move from one project onto another project and be available. And we need to reinforce from time to time the provincial government's responsibility in both in DFA disaster financial assistance, but also in helping with housing and supporting people who are displaced during an incident. And we all recognize that there's a problem and a challenge in those situations to get people into appropriate housing. It's just the municipalities don't have the right mechanisms to be able to deal with it. So having North Shore Emergency Management stepping into that role is challenging. I know that goes a little bit beyond what we're actually talking about here, but it's one of the many things that I think we need to stay focused with North Shore Emergency Management on 72 hours of protection and obviously education before and disaster response and planning beforehand as well. I think these pieces of legislation changes will help us better focus on that role. So I'll be supportive of it. Who's the seconder on this, man? Councillor Pope?
Thank you. I'll be supporting it. I just wanted to ask whether will this new government structure prevent the kind of problems that we've had at Nassim?
Mr. Fox.
Yeah, through the chair. Administration believes it will. It does give different, mainly the district, with the responsibility and the accountability for the finances and also the oversight of the director. So I believe with those clear lines and oversight from the oversight committee will be made up of the 3 CAOs getting reports biannually. And that helps as well. Having 2 of the general managers at the district also, and from the city and West Vancouver also on the operating committee, doing regular or monthly meetings will help. And we've also said that we will be getting updates to council at least twice a year on what's happening at Nassim, what they're focused on, incidents, etc. So we believe with the bylaw changes that it is a little more streamlined and will fix some of the reporting issues and some of the ongoing issues that we're seeing.
Thank you. That's very good to hear. And a follow-up question to that is, when will the investigation into Nassim be made publicly available?
Through the chair, when they're complete. So again, we have really 3 different processes ongoing right now. And once they are complete, we'll bring the findings and be making it public. Administration currently is working on an update for council and the public that will be shared live on our website. So then everybody knows what progress has been made. This is one of the areas that we have noticed that the bylaws needed to be updated, and we wanted to do that at expediency, not waiting for the results of the audits. If further changes need to be done that are recognized throughout the year, we can bring the bylaws back at any time. But currently, we believe this will address the concerns.
And when will that public update be available, approximately?
I'm hoping within the next few weeks. So again, we are working on it currently. I just want to make sure that all the information is as factual and updated as possible.
Thank you. And thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple clarifying questions or that I need clarification on. As you mentioned, the district's going to be the dealing with the financial, watching the financials. And I'm just wondering, there's a percentage that paid by each member to the operating and capital budget, but I didn't see any mention of what the percentage was like in here. Can you tell me what our percentage contribution to this will be?
Through the chair, I have great staff back here that have just that it is by population.
So we will be giving obviously the largest share. Okay. And the other one was it was mentioned that the oversight committee will meet at least twice per year, but it doesn't say how often the steering committee is going to meet. How often will it meet?
Through the chair, the steering committee will at least meet monthly.
Sorry, just steering committee. Just want to check, Mr. Duval.
Yeah. Through the chair, the steering committee meets a minimum of 6 times a year.
6 times?
A minimum of 6 times.
Okay, thank you.
That's what it was.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any other speakers on the matter. I'm prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council. Mr. Paul, you've been so patient with us. Next item, 8.7 Community Heritage Advisory Committee. I'd like to welcome up members of the Heritage Commission. We have Chair, I believe, Tim Paul and James Mitchell joining us here to present their annual report of sorts.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us. Nice to see you again. So you've already made the introduction for us. Thank you very much, Mayor. James and I are here this evening to report to the Council about the activities of the Heritage Advisory Committee for the year 2025. And we'll try to make it quick because it's getting a bit late. So we're going to tag team this report. And I'm going to begin by just giving you some background. Some happy news is that we now have 9 members of the committee as of 2026. That's after 16 years on the committee. I think I can't recall a time when we had so many members. And James is one of those new members. And he stepped forward to be vice chair of the committee, which was, I thought, very brave of him since he has no previous experience on the committee. So we have pretty much covered all the roles that are in the terms of reference for the committee, including a landscape designer of experience, similar to a landscape architect. We don't actually have a landscape architect. The committee meets monthly, 10 times a year, and we have pretty good attendance for that. So the history of the committee is in 2019, the Heritage Strategic Plan was implemented, and it was a long 2-year consultation process for that. It's a 10-year plan, so we're 6 years into it, and I can't tell you if we've got 60% of the plan goals completed, but that's something we're working on. Hopefully we're going to have an answer to that in the next month or two. So the Heritage Advisory Committee sets goals for each calendar year, and with the support of the staff or by supporting the staff, we implement those goals according to a work plan. We have a part-time staff liaison. We did have previously, according to the strategic plan, a target of having a full-time planner, but the contract for that full-time planner was completed in December 2024. So the past year, 2025, we've only had a part-time planner. And it would sure be nice to have a full-time planner, but we understand that there are budgets, as you've previously discussed, that do affect that need for us. Right, so I'm going to pass this on to James, and he's going to give you, sorry, I should have shown you our agenda, the history, and now we're going into the annual activities, and James is going to give you a rundown of that.
Yes, thank you. Your worship, members of council. One of the main activities in 2025, which took place in the spring of 2025, was the Heritage Awards. The committee did not recommend any awards for 2024 as there are no suitable candidates. Annual Heritage Awards are typically bestowed
on two, but up to seven individuals, primarily in the heritage advocacy and restoration of heritage homes. Heritage grants, which took place in autumn of 2025, are restoration, renovation advocacy projects, and the committee's first statement of significance project. There were 16 eligible applications were received for a total request of approximately 61,000 in grant funding from 55,000 in available funding, which approximately 50,000 from the district heritage budget and 5,000 from the North Shore Heritage Fund. Of the 16 applications, 14 received full funding and one application received partial funding. The Heritage Walking Tour was planned for the summer, autumn of 2025. It was conceived in the summer of 2024 and organized as a tour of Lynn Valley of notable heritage resources and places. A Heritage Walking Tour was planned for September of 2025 to include heritage resources, but was canceled due to unfavorable weather conditions, unfortunately. Slide. The youth art contest, and I believe there's an image of one of the participants and contestants in there that their submission was in the spring of 2025. So to increase education and awareness of heritage resources within the District of North Vancouver, the Community Heritage Advisory Committee and DNB staff conceived and implemented the first annual youth art contest. The committee's role was to provide key input on the program design and content, then to evaluate artwork and select contest winners. 5 winners were awarded based on the contest evaluation criteria, and I believe it's one of the winners there. Lovely image of Edgemont Village. The properties trackers. So in September 2022, the committee developed a digital document for tracking the status of the Heritage Register, Heritage Inventory, and Modern Inventory properties. This continues to be a useful tool for monitoring the status of heritage properties in the District of North Vancouver. The document records property sales, building permit, heritage grant applications, subdivision, HRA applications, stop work orders, and demolition permits. The document continues to be relevant as a record of valued and disappearing heritage resources in the district. And the Heritage Properties Development Review is something we do on an ongoing basis. Heritage properties are reviewed for their sensitivity and complexity with their existing form, on compatibility with their existing form rather, and context subject to owner request. Ongoing projects. Do we have a slide for that one? Okay. Bill 44 and Bill 25, uncertainty about the impact of the provincial housing legislation occupied DNB staff and our resources of DNB staff for much of 2025. This in combination with the loss of full-time Community Heritage Advisory staff member led to the deferral of many of our projects and activities. The heritage plaques are another ongoing project. Design of the plaques and installation proposals are ongoing without significant updates. The Heritage Revitalization Agreement, HRA. HRA terms update has been stalled owing to the Bill 44 requirements. However, remains relevant as not all properties will necessarily fall within this legislation objectives. 3526 Evergreen Place and the Arthur Erickson designed home there are a good example of HRA potential. We've been considering for recommendation to the council at some point incentives that will entice HRA applicants potentially, including property tax exemptions, density bonuses / density bank, stratification and or subdivision, fast tracking of permits, or simplification of the development process. Finally, heritage walking tours and story mapping. Story maps developed by DNB staff are underway with 3 maps completed and 2 more proposed. The story maps will be available to the public for self-guided walking tours within unique neighborhoods in the district. The objective of the tours is to engage residents, promoting awareness and appreciation of the District of North Vancouver's rich history.
Okay, thank you, James. So we have some goals and aspirations for this year and ongoing through the mandate of the Heritage Strategic Plan. Heritage Register additions. We've already undertaken some ideas about how to find more properties that have heritage potential. So the committee members are looking at that. There is a little little difficulty in that it requires a heritage professional in order to put properties on the register, and that's a very expensive process. But at least we would still endeavor to find more properties that have potential. Community engagement. So we have the art contest, which we hope will continue. We haven't got any assurances on that yet, but another activity engagement or another youth activity program might be to start a kind of a heritage knowledge program for school-age children. As far as heritage advocacy goes, according to a strategic plan, we would like to start trying to find ways to help owners of West Coast modern homes, which there are many and which we are losing very quickly by demolition. So that is one of the items that the committee will be thinking about this year. Something we've brought up before is a maintenance enforcement bylaw. The latest news that I received from staff is that there might be some difficulty in implementing something like that, but it was something that was included in the strategic plan. So those are the main items that we'll be looking at this year, and other things may come up, but they're first and foremost on our plan. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them. And try.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight. It sounds like you've got a busy schedule coming up. I'm wondering if you can speak to the challenges of Bill 44 for heritage preservation going forward in the community. It set some dates, and there were different protections offered before those dates versus protections offered after those dates, and it's put things into quite a question. So wondering if you have a response to that at this point.
Yeah, I think that came up last year, and one of the things is that it seems to make it very difficult to find properties that might be potential for HRAs. And I think staff knows more about that, much more about that than I do. And I think perhaps they could comment on it further. But it is a huge concern because of the way Bill 44 works, that it really just leaves all heritage properties which are not protected open game.
Yeah, so if a house was protected before a particular date that was picked, then its protection still exists to some degree. But after that particular date, municipalities couldn't use the tool of heritage protection in the same way.
That's the way I understand it, yes.
I'm wondering if you can describe, just my quick math in my head, says the heritage grants were average about $4,000. What's the kind of nature of restoration renovation projects you're doing? I mean, obviously, if you own a heritage property, it's a labor of love. You're putting an awful lot more of your own capital into it, but what's the nature of some of the contributions?
Okay. Yeah. So it's all work in the exterior of the houses at the building envelope, whether it's a roof restoration or paint. There's sometimes small structural things which are being undertaken. It's really just general maintenance to keep them from becoming a demolition by neglect. So the contributions through the grants can sometimes be relatively small relative to the amount of work that's being done. They can, but there's a limit on the amount of grants that we're permitted to give or recommend.
Well, I'm going to carry on with other members of council. Councillor Hanson, your comments, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation, Jim and James, and I'm Jim. So we a good representative of Jim's on the Heritage Committee. I've sat on the committee with you, and I can speak firsthand to your passion, both of you, and the amount of hard work too, the long hours that are put, particularly in your chairmanship, Mr. Paul. Heritage is a value we all share at this table, and you talked about West Coast Modern. Perspective, what category of heritage in the district do you think is most in need of protection and most perhaps neglected by us as a heritage asset?
Yeah, I think the West Coast Modern would be the one that's not been thought too much about, and it's easy target for redevelopment. The house is really not well understood, I think, by the general public, even by some of the owners. But then there are owners that are really passionate about them, and I guess reaching out to those people that are both passionate about them and maybe don't quite understand what they've got, that we somehow educate them and support them.
And I've learned so much sitting on a committee with you for 4 years, Mr. Paul, but can you perhaps just explain what West Coast Modern is and where it fits in the pantheon of heritage across the North Shore?
Right. It would be a lot easier with some images. Unfortunately, we don't have any. We should have had some on our presentation. This last image here is a house by Arthur Erickson. It doesn't really quite fit into the West Coast Modern, but it does have a modern aesthetic, and it's of a certain age that it applies to that period that we're referring to. But generally speaking, they are kind of boxy looking things. They were built in a very minimalist way on a very tight budget. Typically, there's a lot of plywood, and the windows are very ordered in the way they're built. Without an image, it's really hard to explain.
Is there an era for West Coast Modern?
Pardon me?
Is there an era, a time frame?
Yeah, so it's 50s and 60s mostly. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave it at that, but it's been a real pleasure serving on the committee with both of you, and I look forward to the next council heritage tour.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's nice to have you on the committee as well.
If there's one thing I could just add, at least from my perspective, thinking of heritage beyond just homes, I'll use an example in the city of North Vancouver where the fountain at Lonsdale Quay was removed rather than any consideration, in my view, of the heritage for North Vancouver, that sort of thing. Once again, that's a city of North Vancouver example, but just thinking of public spaces and artwork and things like that beyond just homes as part of the community's heritage to consider preserving when it comes up.
We have a heritage mountain bike teeter-totter up on the mountain, and we have a heritage skateboard park, I think, that also meets those designations. I have Councillor Back.
Thank you, Mary Little, and thanks to the Jims and James for all your service, and Jim, Paul, over many years. Appreciate you and all you've given to the committee. I just had a question around some of your advocacy. I note the walking tours that you note here, as well as the new activity program for school children. And I'm just wondering if you partner with any other groups on those. I sit on the Museum and Archives Committee. I can naturally think that there might be a connection with some of the programs that the Archives offers with school groups coming through there, as well as some of your work around, awareness around West Coast Modern. I wonder if you've ever considered working with Minova on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Minova would come into the West Coast Modern, but definitely it's one of the partners that's noted on the strategic plan. There are several partners, and I'm sorry, I wish I had a list of them. If I had the strategic plan to hand, I could name them, but there are several planners, and they are relevant to consulting for things like the story maps, which is a new initiative. In the past, we've had tri-municipal meetings with the heritage committees. Unfortunately, the District of West Vancouver no longer has a heritage committee, but I think having a bi-municipal meeting with the City of North Vancouver is definitely something that I would like to see happen. And that's how we help to develop ideas by listening to what other municipalities are doing.
That's excellent. That was going to be a follow-up question as to whether you do meet with the city heritage committee. So I'm glad to hear that that's something you would look at. Yeah, thank you very much. And when it comes to Minova, I was just, we're always trying to get people through both the museum in the city as well as the archives in Lynn Valley, and feel like something like a heritage walking tour might be a nice connection there. And somebody who buys a heritage home, often they will reach out to the archives to get some old photos and things. So
Other thing I'd add, if I may, and once again, unfortunately, it's not a reference for the district, but when Oasis Car Wash was closed, there was stories in the North Shore News about that, and there was a community effort to preserve some of the items from that, and that resulted in Minova acquiring some of the items. And once again, maybe this is a non-traditional consideration of how heritage can be preserved when there's opportunities.
Totally. I have a vision of an exhibit at Minova that's going to be like the history of businesses on the North Shore and some of those old businesses that are cherished and people know and can kind of harken back to. So thanks for bringing that up.
I think we still have the Anderson neons from the old pharmacy store. So somewhere, probably under Mahan's Stadium, I think, but that's the big storage. Okay, that's Rob.
Thank you. Actually, good to see you, James. I was just thinking about Bill 44 and, sometimes the site of a home that needs protecting may be right in the middle of a potential development site. The value of a heritage or a home that, has heritage value, does it diminish if it's moved to another location?
Oh, well, I would say no, it's not diminished. It's the most important thing is you get someone who's enthusiastic to keep it and restore it. You definitely move houses, yes, and that's something that's encouraged through HRAs.
Okay, because I was just thinking about James's comment that heritage isn't this homes. It could be a fountain. Could it be a garden around the house? Like I'm just trying to understand the scope of what might need to be safeguarded.
Well, the easiest houses to move are the mid-century modern, just the way they're built. The West Coast modern homes tend to be on a concrete slab, and it's very difficult to move something like that. And actually, a good example of that is the Erickson home that was mentioned in the presentation, which we hope will be a subject of an HRA. It's built like that, but the owners of that house are seriously considering moving it, which will be a huge challenge. But if they do it, it'd be great.
Okay. This maybe a little history lesson. Is the Molly Nye house, was that a heritage home that was moved or?
Sorry, that's before my time. I don't know that it was moved, but it is a heritage home and it is a protected one.
Okay, thank you.
It was moved on the site. We dug a basement and moved it from where the Churchill building or Sunrise and seniors facility. It actually was originally where the facility is. And so a basement was dug, building was put over the basement. So there's actually a public room in the basement of it, but it was moved from its original location.
Another example, I'm not sure if it's technically designated as a heritage home, but in Dollarton, the old post office, which is now a house, was moved within the site. So it's still there, but it was moved from where it originally was.
Yeah. It would be cool if we could move some of these homes and create a little village, but I'm just dreaming, but thank you.
Nice dream.
The finance is entirely changed on it because now the lot carries with it potentially 4 to 6 dwelling units in a lot of cases. And so it's challenging. You're probably going to be mostly moving them out of the community. In a lot of cases, they get barged off to coastal communities where it's hard to build a unit in a remote area. They'll barge them up and reuse them in coastal communities. So like the Pattison Yellow House down at Ambleside that was moved recently. So, okay, I see no further speakers from council. Receipt, is there a second for receipt? Second by Councillor Hanson. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. On behalf of council, thank you so much for the work you do volunteering for the organization, and we always look forward to your reports and your events. Looking forward to our council heritage walk with you coming up. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. All right. I know we normally would take a break at 9 as the clock says, but that clock didn't change apparently last week, and it's actually 10. So I'm suggesting we soldier on and get through the last item and reports, and maybe we can wrap up relatively quickly. Yeah, two items. Yeah. Okay, so at this point, I've got Mr. Smith here to make a presentation on small-scale multi-unit housing, residential rental, tenure, zoning, and affordable unit analysis. I understand it's about a 5-minute presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will proceed. I will make a brief presentation, perhaps even briefer. We have 2 members of the consulting team who wrote the economic analysis here, so I will keep my presentation brief, so perhaps we can maximize our time with them to answer any questions you may have about their analysis. As Council is well aware, Bill 25 has brought us back into conversation around small-scale multi-unit housing and how to implement it by the legislated deadline of June 30th of 2026 this year. As I'm sure Council is well aware, but we'll reiterate briefly, it does establish minimum densities in most of our single-family lots. On small lots, 3 units. On the vast majority of lots in the district, it's a 4-unit minimum. And then on some of the lots near frequent transit in the Marine Drive corridor and Lynn Valley Road corridor is a 6-unit minimum. Staff brought forward a report to a workshop over February 9th and 10th, where we outlined some of the implementation challenges that we saw for bringing SSMUH to the district. And Council's already received a report on March 2nd with regards to an extension application. Today, we are bringing forward 2 areas where Council had asked for further analysis with regard to residential rental tenure zoning, or RRTZ, in the context of SSMUH. So this would be looking at kind of a broad requirement for rental tenure in SSMUH throughout the district, where it is if implemented, there would be only rental. So we wanted to see what the economic impacts of that would be. It's not required by legislation. It is something that Council can choose to use in terms of a tool. The other similar issue that was also raised at that workshop in February was whether Council wanted to consider the requirement of a sixth unit to be affordable in areas where 6-unit SSMUHs are permitted. The legislation does require that Council consider economic analysis before implementing it, but is not required to follow the conclusions of that economic analysis. It simply needs to consider it. So staff, after that conversation with Council, hired Urban Systems and Waters Development Services, who are here tonight. I will introduce them when I'm finished, to do an analysis on several sites throughout the district that we felt were representative of various neighborhoods, 4 units and 6-unit SSMUHs. With regard to the economic analysis, and again, they're here to answer more in-depth questions and probably better able to speak to the conclusions than I am. They concluded that the SSMUH development was not viable under strata or rental tenure in much of the district in terms of at least the 5 sites we looked at. Similarly, for the 6-unit SSMUH and the affordable housing, again, there was 2 sites of the 5 that we did that had the 6 units. So they did do a test in terms of what the requirement was, and that we looked at similar to the similar level of affordability that was proposed for inclusionary zoning. And that again came back as not viable. I'll conclude my remarks. Just want to contextualize the comments, but that's basically that. In terms of the report did lay out some options to move forward. So with regards to rental tenure zoning, Council could choose to direct staff when we come back at a later date with the necessary regulatory changes to implement rental tenure zoning, or that required 6th affordable unit, or could choose not to based on the information we provided today. And with that, I will turn it over to any questions you may have. I will take a moment here to introduce Justin Bearer from Urban Systems and Jessica O'Sullivan from Waters Development Services. And they're available to answer any questions related to the analysis that's attached to the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So nothing will work, and where do we go from here? I guess my question for the consulting team would be, how much of the analysis is based on the current economic downturn that's being seen broadly within the community? If we took the same test and applied it in, say, 2022 or 2023, which theoretically, if we get a few years into the future and some of the issues get sorted out around immigration levels and such, we could theoretically be back to the kind of demand at some point, again, within a 5-year period. But if you ran these numbers in the 2010-22 market base, what's the likelihood that these three options would actually be viable?
You want to start? You want me to? I can start. I mean, obviously, we did not run the historical analysis. I would venture that, you know, knowing what we know about development economics at the time and having run analysis for many other development typologies at that time, you'd probably be seeing a fairly different picture. You know, since 2020, well, basically over the last 5 years, we've seen massive cost escalation, and we've seen for a while price appreciation, you know, moving lockstep with that. In the last year and a half, we've seen prices come off. We've seen prices flatline. Cost escalation has continued. The conclusions of the analysis are saying, looking at average costs of land, average cost of development, average prices that are achievable right now doesn't work. Does not mean that nothing works anywhere. It simply means that on average, taking you know, the balance of probabilities, things are not going to work. That does not mean that there's not going to be edge cases, even in today's climate, where things could work. A lower price site, slightly more favorable cost, cost on the site, potentially slightly above average revenues. You may well see pathway to viability there. These financial results are very sensitive to small changes in the analysis. So yes, under a picture where things improve, the numbers will certainly improve. Anything you wanted to add?
I would just add that one of the major components for the analysis is the value of the single family home, which I've never seen reduce in my time in BC, which I grew up here. And there's in an economic scenario where somebody can either purchase a single family home and then resell it with improvements and make $1.6 million versus purchase that same site, sink $4 to $6 million into it, and then resell for maybe $500,000 of profit. You're not going to see that happen very regularly in the real world.
Yeah, effectively, the single family home creates a pricing floor on the land, right?
Yeah, I've always wondered, I mean, let's say you're at $500 a square foot of construction cost, which I think is actually rather moderate in the current environment. Which is shocking. It's shocking. So you're going to build a 3,000 square foot house. You're going to be in for $1.5 million in construction costs, plus the land. So another $1.5 million. So we're already into the provincial luxury tax by the time you've produced a 3,000 square foot house. By the time you produce it with 2, 3, 4, 6 dwellings, you are into a phenomenal cost. So I think under the most generous circumstances, you would have up to 9,000 square foot of buildable space with a 6 unit. I think that's what's been proposed under the legislation. And well, what's the quick math on that is that the construction costs on top of the land would be $4.5 million. Now, obviously, as you're building a larger place, there are some economies of scale that may kick in, but still, because you're producing 6 different kitchens and at least 6 different washrooms and at least all of the infrastructure for at least 6 different dwelling units, the costs are extremely high compared to consolidated multifamily developments in a town center. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I would just say as a point of like interesting comparison, I've looked at what the cost per unit is kind of typically across BC for one of these SHMU multiplex units. And it's usually around like 1.3 million just to build. So you have to think about profit on top of that for a for-profit developer and compare that to a multifamily where, you know, the cost to build is more like between $600,000 and $800,000 per unit, depending on the unit. Yeah, it kind of gives you some insight into exactly what you're saying. Like these things are really expensive to build.
And as a result, you see across the province, and we're running these types of analyses in different communities, and in many communities, the numbers simply don't, because you cannot achieve revenues high enough to offset. There are some pockets where this does happen. You do see SHMU type developments happening on the west side of Vancouver and in little pockets of the North Shore where you can achieve those luxury level pricing to offset those costs. But to your point, you're building a lot of expensive space in these boxes, right?
Yeah, in Edgemont, we certainly saw in the last go round, really at the peak of the market, we saw $2,000 a square foot for strata sale, 1.7 or 1,700 up to $2,000 a square foot in Edgemont with the Grosvenor development. And if you can capture that dollar, maybe you can make a project work. But I guess the question is, who's the buyer and builder? Yes. Is it the exceptionally wealthy person who just wants the bonus space that we're giving out? Or is it really someone who's trying to accommodate family members in a way that the market wouldn't normally reflect? Who's the customer that remains when you consider what's not viable?
Want to begin?
Yeah, sure. So what we see in terms of, you know, resident developers is exactly what you're saying. They have family, multi-generational ties. They have a strong connection to the land and the neighborhood, and they have enough equity in their home and enough liquidity through, you know, their lifespan to actually redevelop and add on laneway houses or a second duplex. In terms of for-profit developers, you are seeing them in places where they're able to run, like find those sliver cases, the 3% where the cost of the land per square foot is low enough. And they can come up with construction technologies, you know, they leverage like modular style construction and efficiency across multiple different sites. So you do see that in places like Vancouver. There's a couple I can think of, but otherwise you're not seeing a lot of,
No, and then to the Vancouver examples, what you end up creating are flex housing units, which are fairly, you know, they're family-sized units, and maybe they're being offered in the low $2 million range, which is an astronomical number, but in comparison to the $3.5 million single detached home next door, it is the affordable option in the neighborhood, right? So everything is relative, I suppose.
It just seems to, again, reinforce what we've said for years, which is town center redevelopment with density, properly supported by services, is the likely way you're going to produce units going forward in the future.
At scale, yes, I believe so.
So I don't have much to add to this. I know this isn't the broader discussion about implementation of SMU in our community. This is just sort of tell us more about the financial pieces, but there's an awful lot of time and ink that's been committed to the implementation of bills 44, 46, and 47. And I think the only conclusion you can draw is that it's not an appropriate policy for this time in this place. And so it unfortunately won't be successful in any reasonable way, in my humble opinion. But I think it's still incumbent on us to focus on town center redevelopment as we've committed to in the past, as we've seen success in the past, lower cost per unit, lower environmental impact per unit, easier to support with transit and appropriate services there. And this just reinforces that, in my opinion. I see, just to put it on the table officially, I think I'll move receipt. Councillor Forbes, you'll second receipt. Councillor Forbes, your comments, please.
Answered my question, because I was wondering if there was a sweet spot, if it wasn't in the 6 units, maybe in the 4 units, or if there was a sweet spot. But I think you've pretty much answered my question. Might find a sweet area. But I did have one question about this report. On page 226, in the table, the first neighborhood listed is Boundary. And then on page 237, it talks about Boundary and Norgate neighborhoods. And then further on, it talks about Boundary again. And my question is, where's this Boundary neighborhood?
Thank you. Boundary Elementary School, I'm assuming, 26 yeah, it's Boundary Elementary School. It's right on the border between the city and the district in Lynn Valley. Come on.
My kids went to that.
Tell me my campaign signs there alone again. There you go.
They should clarify a little better. That was my only question.
Yes, Councillor Forbes, I apologize through the chair. Boundary meant to be Lynn Valley boundary. So in the actual report,
The Lynn Valley boundary.
yeah, that is referring to like we picked 6 sites. We wanted or 5 sites. Then we picked a site in the Lynn Valley Road area that was in the 6-unit SSMUH. And so that's what that first one is representing. It's a typo. So in the urban systems report, they refer to it as Lynn Valley boundary. And so on table 1 on page 236 of the agenda, that's a typo. It should have said Lynn Valley boundary to denote that it is on kind of the periphery or the boundary of Lynn Valley. Probably a poor wording choice, but we wanted to kind of abstract out the location without revealing the specific site. But you've seen the mapping of where the Lynn Valley 6-unit sites are. So those kind of that band within 150 meters of the bus stops along Lynn Valley Road.
Yeah.
It's one of those sites within that area.
Okay. All right.
I apologize for the confusion. That's my fault.
Thank you.
Thank you for this report. It was an interesting read about in knowing that other communities, the uptake has been about 1% or so of SSMUH. I'm just wondering about the 2 options. I usually prefer not to have this or that and see if there's some middle ground. Let me just try a concept on you. Option 1, if there's no requirement for affordable units in the 6, but we say we're going to monitor and adjust if necessary. If we can speculate, do you think people might, if they're thinking about it, that might be enough to say, I better get in now before the district puts on a requirement? I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, if that's actually potentially going to spur some action.
So just to clarify, so that would be spurring action to build 6 market units in advance of
us requiring one of them being a rental.
Notwithstanding that the economics of 6-plex in general are challenging, I suppose it's possible that there would be interest.
I know it's the speculation,
but yeah, the economics of 6-plex are quite challenging. I mean, I wonder if the outcome, if a 6th unit affordable were to be brought in, the outcome may be they forego the 6th unit altogether. I think that would probably be the more likely.
Just go to 4 or 5 and not trigger the 6.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Okay, but
this is all speculation.
Hey, I think the government did the same thing, or the provincial government did the same thing when they developed this policy. There, you have it on recording. Okay, I was just trying to looking at this, seeing where the silver lining was, and I'm not sure if I found it, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Pope.
I think it's quite possible that we didn't ask you to find out enough information, because one of the things that I've noticed is that there's nothing in here regarding, aside from a homeowner, there's nothing about a nonprofit potentially building a SSMUH to provide affordable housing. So is that in your, do you have any knowledge of how that's worked out?
I can speak to that a little bit outside of the context of the DNV, just through some other work I've done. It is a very interesting typology for a nonprofit because it is more of a family-sized unit, and you can leverage the affordable housing credits depending on the municipality to try and reduce the cost of construction. But even when I looked at that in Vancouver, took the cost from like 1.3 down to 950,000, which is still quite expensive.
Yeah.
When there's 4 of them.
How much is it when there's 6 of them?
Not that much less.
Really?
Yeah, it's not quite enough to get the economy of scale. You need to be looking at something more like a 32 townhouse development to really hit like efficiency, unfortunately.
So it still would provide people with the option of buying on a single family lot some housing that comes in at under $1 million, today's dollars.
There's some interesting kind of like shared home equity affordable housing models that have been looked at for SSMUH, where there's like grants of some kind, or where you're leveraging kind of like a rent to own style principle. But this type of development is so new in general that even the nonprofits are like, they're not really looking at it, and they find most of their success in the multifamily space, as everybody else does. Like if you're looking at bang for your buck in terms of getting people into homes, like their time and energy is usually better focused elsewhere. But I personally think there's a good like model for a nonprofit housing.
Or exploring that option, particularly if they are leasing the land, perhaps from us already, or something along those lines, or they own the property.
Yeah, especially if they have, a small housing society that is maybe up to 10 units already. And a lot of the units across the North Shore are aging. And this could be a good option for a nonprofit housing society to kind of create a replacement, move people there. Yeah. If you find people who want to do that, send them my way.
I mean, the district is also one of them. Did you find any governments that or municipalities that are you aware of any that are funding that? But we do know that the federal government's Housing Accelerator Fund is largely contributing to the development of SSMUHs because we didn't get any federal accelerator housing funding because we didn't approve the 4 units on each house, on each single family unit. So we lost actually literally millions and millions in grants because of that, which could have gone towards this. So, okay, well, something to think about. Thank you.
Welcome. Councillor Beck.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Little. Thanks very much for your report. I'm just wondering if you've ever looked at the notion of pre-approved plans for some of these multiplexes, and if that could be the next step for helping to create some more affordability. If somebody could walk into District Hall and receive plans for a 4-plex or a 6-plex, the DNV special, so to speak.
Yeah, so I'm kind of speaking more again from work outside of this report, but there are a couple of smaller builders that I've heard of, one in the Sea to Sky who's done this exact thing, taken the kind of conceptual BC housing SSMUH designs that there was a catalog, and he made it actually efficient. And apparently he's hitting $300 per square foot construction cost, which is much less than where we see anywhere else. Yeah, I know. So I think there probably is potential, but we just need that one guy to like
work for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. I see no further speakers. I'm prepared to call the question on receipt. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for the report today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Council, we do need to address the issue of going beyond 10:30 at this point. So we have only one item left, but think we need to extend the meeting beyond 10:30. So I'll make a motion that, sorry? So I will move that we extend the meeting beyond 10:30. Is there a seconder for that? Second by Councilor. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? I'll take that as unanimous consent because I didn't see any opposition. Didn't see a lot of enthusiasm either, Council. And so we're going to carry on with item 8.9, which is Councillor Ma's report. So Councillor Ma, do you have a motion to start us off, and then we'll get into discussion?
I will. Where's the staff's recommendation? Yes, the motion that the mayor on behalf of council sends a letter to Premier Evie and Minister or Christine Boyer, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, advocating for continued support of funding for the BC Rent Bank.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Forbes. Comments, Councillor Mo?
First of all, I want to thank Kelly Bond for bringing this to council's attention. Having worked at BC Housing, we're so focused on building new houses, or having worked at BC Housing before, we're so focused on building new houses, but it's just as important that we put some energy in making sure that people that are housed stay housed, especially if they run into some little bumps. I also want to give special thanks to Kevin Lee over at Harvest Project. On the North Shore, Harvest Project manages and runs the rent bank on the North Shore. And he was really open and forthcoming and helpful in putting a lot of the details in this report. And in a lot of ways, this given the late hour, to me, this focus on a couple of things. The majority of these loans are really to help renters make some rent payments when they run into a little bump in the road, whether it's job loss, illness, or something happens with the car, whatever reason. Not everyone has extra money always handy to make rent, and in certain environments, if you miss rent in this market, potentially your landlord can find out a tenant that's willing to pay higher money. So it's really important that we do what we can to help people that are housed to stay housed. And the second part is, this isn't a handout. This is a loan. And Kevin at Harvest Project said that their repayment percentage is quite high in BC. It's about 85% of the loans are repaid. There's a small number that are also given as grants, but most of them tends to be loans. And the final interesting point is that this isn't only from provincial money. The province probably funds about half the loans. The others are from donations. So there's people, organizations in the community that are helping. So, when the provincial government, who's been generous in supporting this program, puts in their money, there's almost like a matching by a non-government sources. So having the BC Rent Bank, it's critical as part of the solution to addressing housing challenges for people. So just to summarize and make it clear for everyone, it's very simple. The focus here is to help people stay housed. The program is working. And, in the big picture, it's not like the 1.4 that's been cut from the housing, 1.4 billion that's been cut from the housing project. This is quite a small amount, but this program is something that I believe the government should stay invested in, and it really helps people. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Forbes, is second or additional comments? Okay.
No, I don't have much to say, but I wanted to really emphasize the point that this is funds that can be accessed for low to middle income people when it's something can just hit them right sort of on the spot, like their utilities are being cut off or they realize they can't afford to pay at the end of the month. And it's not, as Councillor Ma said, these are not, these are loans. So they do get paid back. And I've gone down to Harvest Project too. And their experience with this that was conveyed to me was that the people are really good. They get this helping hand and they really want to pay it back as best they can. They don't look at it like it's a free handout. They look at it as part of their job of trying to get somewhere in their lives. And I just want to say we need to make sure that this stays in place for people. 7,200 households were supported to avoid eviction or essential utility disconnection, 7,200 since 2019. So it's obviously a very valuable support. Thank you.
Sorry, if I can just add, I'm sorry that the number slipped me my mind, but since 2019, the program has provided $11 million, and that's helped all these people, and that's a relative drop in the bucket for this provincial government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Little. I'm happy to support the writing of the letter. Councillor Ma, thanks for bringing it forward. Just wondering if you've considered bringing it to UBCM as well as a potential motion. We still have time. It wouldn't go directly to UBCM. It wouldn't go through LMLGA, but that could be one avenue as well to
the end of March. So yeah,
being in September, it would be a gap
to get it on the table as a issue important to local governments.
Okay. I'm supportive of this. I think it's a good program. Over 7,200 people helped in the life of it. It's good option for people. I always wonder in our purpose-built rental area, we have a very big challenge because the provincial government decided to sort of mobilize a lot of these purpose-built rental places to help with the social assistance piece. And the challenge becomes the way it was done, it actually rewards high churn properties. And so if as costs were increasing above the provincially mandated caps, you were putting an incentive in place for a place that has a really poor management or has other problems that they're not dealing with in there, because they tend to be higher churn. People leave, and therefore it returns back to the market rate at the time, which is quite often above the more suppressed rate. And so you have this weird anomaly in the system where good landlords who are responsive, making changes in their facilities, supporting their tenants, making it a great place to live, are actually punished financially. And poor landlords who are not being responsive, who are making it a less attractive place to live, are actually rewarded by the high churn and return to market rates. Now, theoretically, there's a flip side to that, which is if rent markets return to lower than the cap rate that the province brings in, then maybe the high churn places will be desperate to fill the units, and you'd see a softening of rental rates. It's just something we haven't seen in our community for at least the last 20 years. And so I hope we get to a point where we have a healthy amount of vacancy so that you can start to see some easing on the unit prices. But I also see the development community rapidly slowing down the development of all kinds of units, even the rental tenure units that had been proposed, and which means that there will be less likely to complete the supply and cause that competition within available units. So it's a challenging environment to be able to produce affordability in market. And so having tools like this that help you address temporary shortages and emergent issues, I think, is a wise tool to have within the system. So I'm supportive of your motion, Councillor. Anybody else like to speak on the matter? Hearing none, I'm prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, council, any reports? I don't really have any specific reports other than to wish everybody of Irish heritage happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. I will be having my green beer and yes, a majority of my background is Irish, not just the little namesake, but family on both sides. And so looking forward to having a little bit of fun with some green beer, probably as well tomorrow night. Would anybody else like to make a report? Councillor Ma? Sorry.
Yes. Last Thursday, I attended the Northam School District trustees reception. It was a good turnout. Got to have some good discussions with Dr. Jason Dooling, the new president of CAPU. I think, and here's my pitch. I think this district and council, there might be a lot of potential opportunities to work with CAPU. And I also had a chance to talk to a few people at the school district about their student leadership program and how that might tie into trying to get more youth to participate in local government. So that's something else. But it was a good reception, but got some good council business done at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further names for reports. Well, we've completed the business of this evening's meeting, so I will accept adjournment offered by Councillor Forbes. Accepted. Thank you to staff for your preparation reports for consideration tonight. Thank you to members of the public for sticking around and participating, and also council, thank you for the important decisions you made tonight. Everybody have a fantastic week. Good night.